Hi, everybody, and welcome to Digital Catapults. Great to see lots of faces here today and looking at a full house. Looking forward to a really good session. This is our second showcase event, and this time we're featuring our two cohorts. One are test beds, and the other the ones who've been working with SMEs and smaller manufacturing organisations. So really excited about today and what we're going through. Before I get started, just some hygiene factors. So for those that haven't been to Digital Catapult before, if there is if there is a fire today, which there's nothing planned or no fire alarms planned, then the exit's just over here. If restrooms are down this side on the left-hand side, out of the auditorium, and yeah, please enjoy the facilities here. We've got a great location and lovely views. So looking forward to meeting everybody and having a good chat through the day. In terms of the agenda today, then. In terms of agenda today, this morning we're going to spend our time really picking up on the digital supply chain test beds. As you know, we're running 4 test beds, and each of those is going to give us a bit of an overview of how the test bed is working and setting up. Before that, we've got a short presentation from Philippa and Matthew, giving an overview of the importance of supply chains in the UK. And it's great to see the Department of Business and Trade actually have a supply chain director, it's really good to see that, and it'll be interesting to sort of hear their perspective. And then we are moving then into the afternoon session to talk about the digital supply chain innovation showcases. So we've got a number of innovation projects we've been running, and really excited to welcome them today, and also to talk through some of the innovations they've been developing. As I said, working with some of the SME manufacturers that we also have in the room today, so it's great to see that. And then aim to finish around about 3 o'clock, and networking and socializing afterwards for those that can stay around. So, hopefully really looking forward to the day today. Before I get going, I'm going to give a very brief update on what we're doing in the hub overall, and just give you a little bit of a status update, because I think for those that have been involved for a while, we've been running now since since September 2021, and we're now sort of 2.5 years through the program, and there's so much happening. It's sort of thought it'd be useful to give you a bit of an overview and update of that. Before we do, for those that don't know the Digital Catapults, we're the UK's digital agency for advanced digital technologies. Our mission is to accelerate early adoption and application of advanced digital technologies for the benefit of the UK. We are about 300 people strong, and really focused on driving digital innovation, working with industry, working with technology companies, and acting as that bridge between the two. So if you get a chance, please talk to some of the people today who are from the Digital Catapult, sitting at the back and stuff. Get a chance to understand what we're doing and how we're working. For those that don't remember, the Digital Supply Chain Hub is part of Made Smarter, and it's great to see the Made Smarter colleagues here as well today. Our vision is to transform UK manufacturing through digitally empowered supply chains that are more efficient, resilient, and sustainable. And supply chains are still top of the agenda for business and government. We'll probably hear a little bit more about that in a second, but certainly from what we've seen out and about, just recently, the Red Sea attacks, we were talking about sanctioned countries just earlier, and also the role of technology is really massively developing and changing. AI becoming a huge theme for supply chains and how that's developing. So, I think we're very much on theme for what's going on in the world in this hub, and it's great to see so many organizations involved in what we're doing. So what have we achieved so far? Well, a few impact numbers. We've got around 11 million's worth of grant funding from Innovate UK, of which we've allocated now just about 10.5 million of that. We have around 12.5 million of co-investment from industry, which is great to see. Some 200 plus businesses actively engaged in what we're doing across 18 different sectors. We've got quite a lot of SME organizations in manufacturing and in tech involved. And we're internationalizing this year as well. So we're just, I've got a 1 million grant to develop a supply chain accelerator, international accelerator, and we're looking to sort of roll out more globally over the next 12 months. As you can start to see, there's already some projects that are making a difference. Our supply chain visibility solution with a company called Verst AI. I think Clive from Crunswick is here. The work that we did there with Singular Intelligence are already starting to make an impact on UK supply chains. And we have now a supply chain directory that we co-developed with the High Value Manufacturing Catapult, which we're rolling out and developing further over the next couple of years as well. So really excited about that. So really, to put today in context of what we're going to talk about, we're doing three things in the Digital Supply Chain Hub. First of all, we are focused on the issues that organizations tell us are the issues of today's supply chains. That of making supply chains more sustainable and circular, that of making supply chains more resilient, and also enabling collaboration across end-to-end supply chains, which is sort of really critical to support the whole making supply chains more efficient. And so we're doing three things in the Digital Supply Chain Hub. Firstly, and you'll hear about some of those today, we're developing a portfolio of digital innovations, which we believe are addressing those challenges in today's supply chains. And today, as I say, we're showcasing those technology innovations, really working with the smaller manufacturers. We're then looking to see how we can test and deploy and prove the value of those digital solutions in supply chain test beds. And we've got 4 test beds we'll go through today, and Tim, my colleague, will introduce those in a little while. In hydrogen, auto spares, food, and circular textiles. And then finally, and most importantly, there's no point in innovating unless industry wants to adopt and take those solutions on board. And it's great to see a range of industry here today who are interested in doing that. And the last bit of what we're doing in the hub is creating a platform for digital adoption, whether that be training, whether that be skills development, whether that be solutions organizations can access. And we're launching that platform in April this year, so initially virtually, and then we've got a face-to-face launch in July, where you'll be able to get a lot more of an understanding of what we're doing in the adoption part of digital supply chains for industry. So hopefully that puts us in context of what we're trying to do. But before we get into the detail of the different areas that we're working on and some of the examples, I'd like to introduce Philippa and Matthew to give our keynote today. Philippa is the Director of Global Supply Chain for the Department of Business and Trade, and Matthew is the Head of Policy and Strategy. And hopefully they're going to give us a bit of an overview of what's going on in relation to government in this area. So I'll pass you over. And welcome.
Thank you very much for inviting us today. This is going to be an amazing event. And we've got a couple of colleagues from the team who are here as well. And I wonder if you could just wave, colleagues from the team. Big wave, because what I'm going to say is, if anything we say today is interesting, these guys over here are the people to chat to kind of connect. We're going to talk to you today. In fact, Matt is mainly going to talk to you today about our critical import strategy. We launched it in January, and he can talk you through all of that. I just wanted to start by just saying that we exist. So Tim said it was really great that there was a Director Supply Chains in DBT. So that is a tick already. I have a job title, but I just want to give you a sense of what we're actually doing in the team. So we've got a really strong focus on resilience. So like, I know that the test beds and the flagships are looking at a variety of different points in terms of circularity and sustainability, we are really focused on resilience. And that is, of course, because of the resilience issues that have happened in supply chains since COVID-19, with Russia's invasion of Ukraine and other areas. So that's our kind of driving focus, resilience. We have a team of analysts who are looking at supply chain mapping, and I've already heard from a couple of people here how important some of the supply chain mapping is for your own businesses, for your own organisations. It's massively important for government too, and that is something that we are really focusing on, and Matt will touch on in a moment. We're also looking at the kind of government level strategies that we might be able to, strategies and policies that might be able to help with that supply chain resilience. Recognising that pretty much all supply chains are in the hands of business, not of government, and that it is for business who know their supply chains to manage those in the best way possible. But where there are areas where it makes, where there's a market failure, or indeed where the product is more important to our citizens than it is perhaps to the business, we need to understand where those are and what we do about them. And then the final thing I would just flag is that we're working internationally. We've been doing a lot of work in the G7 with the OECD. These organisations can sometimes seem a bit remote from what is happening. The point of those interactions and the point of our international outreach is because our supply chains are obviously global. Often there are things which other countries do and choices they make that actually make supply chains significantly less resilient, and that can both be our classic adversaries and also our friends. So we need to be out there talking, giving a real sense of what we think supply chains need internationally to keep them really, really resilient. So that's a kind of very potted history of what we're up to. And I will hand over to Matt to talk to you about strategy.
Thank you very much. So look, at the outset, I thought it might be helpful to set out why government felt that a critical import strategy was needed and what it seeks to do. So in summary, the strategy is a response to the need to ensure that the UK has reliable access to the goods and imports essential to critical sectors of our economy in the context of a rapidly changing world. It reflects the importance of ensuring that our critical supply chains are resilient to shifting global trends. These include the effects of COVID-19, an evolving geopolitical landscape, the emergence of new transformative technologies, and the shift to net zero. We therefore set out to develop a strategy that would help the UK to meet these challenges by setting out an overarching vision for critical imports and supply chains, outlining the key challenges and opportunities and government's plans to address these, building on the various strategies that have already been published on key sectors such as semiconductors and batteries. By providing UK businesses with the tools that they need to build secure supply chains. As Philippa said, recognising that the vast majority of the UK's critical supply chains are owned by industry rather than government. And finally, by informing our approach to work with international partners on what is very much a global issue. In developing a strategy that would deliver these objectives, we aim to make engagement with business central to the process. This reflects the fact, as I said, that the vast majority of the UK's critical supply chains are owned by business, and we wanted to make sure that the government's approach reflected industry concerns and priorities. As the slide sets out, we did this through a range of ways, including a business survey, roundtables, and a variety of other engagements, all of which provided us with some really rich insights. These are conversations and relationships that we are looking to build on and expand as we continue this work. The strategy that was developed is structured around 5 priorities, all of which digital innovation has the potential to help us deliver. These are making the UK government a centre of excellence for supply chain analysis and risk management. This is building on the work that's already happening in government and beyond to improve our understanding of global supply chains and the risks, the resilience of these, including through the use of innovative digital tools and analysis. Removing critical import barriers to support the UK's business-friendly environment. Next, building the UK's response to global supply chain shocks, but also ensuring that the UK can adapt to longer-term trends, whether this be climate change, the move towards net zero, or the impact of critical and emerging technologies on the economy. And then finally, enabling all of these, expanding collaboration between government, business and academia, harnessing the full breadth of available expertise and innovation on supply chain resilience. Sitting beneath these 5 priorities, we have set out 18 actions that the government will undertake. These include entrenching government's position as a leader in supply chain analysis, sharing more of that analysis with business, new work to identify, review, and where feasible, remove barriers to imports, ensuring that government has the right frameworks to respond to and to help businesses respond to supply chain shocks, expanding our programme of stress testing exercises with international partners and businesses, assessing options to support the development of manufacturing, recycling and innovation capabilities for critical goods, developing guidance toolkits and information campaigns for business, and launching a new industry government critical imports council. As I've said, we see digital innovation and the sort of work being undertaken through the Digital Supply Chains Hub as offering exciting opportunities to support this work. This could be through supporting innovation in manufacturing and supply chains, using cutting-edge analysis to help us unravel the complexities of ever more complicated global supply chains, using these insights to test resilience with other nations or businesses, or improving information flows, making it easier for government to provide businesses with information or industry to help government to identify the key issues. So I'd like to conclude this presentation with a request. As I've said, we want close collaboration with supply chain experts from business, from academia, to be absolutely central to the implementation of the strategy. Where your work, through the hub or more generally, is identifying opportunities to use digital technology better, to understand supply chains, or to improve resilience, we are very keen to hear from you, to work with you to help us ensure that we are fully capitalising on the breadth of available expertise on this important issue. So please do get in touch. Got our contact details there. Thank you very much.
So I think now we're moving into the part of the agenda on the test beds. Yeah. So what we want to do, I'm going to give a short introduction to the digital supply chain test beds, and then we're going to move into each of the test beds giving an overview of what they're doing, which is going to be really interesting. Yeah. Just to set the context of why we even thought about test beds and why we really wanted to have them in the hub itself. One of the biggest problems that we've identified in the adoption of digital technologies is organizations happy to take the risk of testing and implementing a digital technology in their business. Not only that, accessing the data, yeah, and finding the data that they can actually then physically use in terms of digital technologies. So the reason why we felt the test beds were so important was really to provide that isolated real-world operational end-to-end supply chain environment where technologies can be not only deployed, but also tested using real data without the risks of business disruption. And we have this idea that, you know, if we can test digital innovation across end-to-end supply chains and typically multi-tier supply chains, then we believe, hypothesis-wise, and we're going to get some on one of our research calls. I think the Cass University are going to be helping us now, saying we can potentially get something like 20 to 30% benefits of actually multi-tier end-to-end supply chain improvements. Yeah. And one of the reasons for having these test beds is let's test it, let's prove it, let's see what the value is for industry, because often organizations say to us, I'm really interested in doing it, but what is the value? Yeah. And you know, hopefully we'll see some of that today. So that's really why we see the test beds as so important in terms of how they fit into the overall digital supply chain hub agenda. Let's just introduce a little bit of what the test bed is trying to do. So what we set out to do is to have at least 3 tiers of a typical supply chain represented within the testbed. As you know, supply chains not necessarily linear these days, but more networks. But you can see the end-to-end supply chain from raw material down through to the consumer. So we wanted to try and test at least 3 tiers in those supply chains and create a data environment, a data aggregation environment where we bring not only the actually sort of getting the data from those supply chains into that environment, and then we can run innovation projects against that data environment and see how those innovation projects work. So that was that's the plan. We'll be able to see whether it's come to reality in the next couple of hours, next hour or so, with the actual test beds and what they're trying to do. So we've got 4 test beds to talk about today. We've got the food test bed, which Alex is going to talk about, hydrogen, which Siwan and Adam, textiles, and then which Mark, Nathan and Toby are going to talk about, and spare parts. So I think we have a sort of 10-minute sort of overview of the test bed, and then a little time for Q&A. 5 minutes for Q&A, after each of the sessions. So it's going to be a relatively quick fire. So we'll keep it active, and but obviously as we go through, think of questions, and then we'll take them on a first come first serve basis. So I think we're starting off with food. So I'm going to hand over then to Alex to tell us all about what's going on in the food test bed.
What isn't going on? Thanks, everybody. I'm Alex Zimborski, and very grateful to have been part of this Digital Catapult sponsored scheme for the test beds. I've been working in the food industry as a technologist now for nearly 10 years, and it's a tough industry. When we look at the practicalities of working with the industry, it's multi-tiered, and when we flash up the end-to-end linear data flows, it's more like a series of eddies in that stream. And one of the things about food is, of course, it changes in flight. So what you order isn't necessarily what gets put in a container, and it's certainly not necessarily what you receive in a yard in Spalding. But here we start outlining, we start outlining the all the processes and all the data that we've collated and pulled together within the test bed. We've had some great partners, so LFP, Worldwide Fruit, and Mellon & Co. contributed vast data streams to the experiment. So what we wanted to do is make this useful first and foremost. I've talked over the last year about incentives and getting these industries to participate. Disparate data, that's used on as I say, in these eddies of distribution, often retyped in, re-encoded, a lot of information going around the supply chain actors. So we wanted to first of all, get an extract, transform and load. Pretty boring stuff, but really useful. So this enables our users to pull in data, then transform it into reports, say for DEFRA, for example, which we're working through with LFP at the moment. But that wasn't enough, we didn't feel. So we had this concept of meeting your data. And we've just come into this wonderful world of OpenAI and Gemini and other transform models. We wanted to take hold of those and see how we could use those best and deploy those. In my broader business contained, we have an ambition to put bleeding and leading edge technologies in all businesses. And that's not always as simple, especially with the models, the transform models today. So we wanted to have that, we wanted to use those transform models, build the interface that was user-friendly, make it commercially sensitive as well. You can start going through a lot of tokens with AI, and that starts adding up. And then we're very aware that the models can hallucinate, they can go off in different directions. So I'm reliably informed that we now do retrieval aggregation generation, which we just called our agent network, which controls the inputs and outputs from the model. But we also needed to give it utility. Now, I've never seen in new technology this go so rapidly. from the barbarians at the gate, the pitchforks, the end of civilization, all the way through to ridicule. That OpenAI can't give you an answer about a very discrete piece of information, say the Great Pretender song "Lie to Me" by Chrissy Hynde. It didn't know, and that was what I searched for. But and please come and see us at 3 o'clock, and we'll present this. But we have a demo that basically cycles through 1 million data points in real time. And then the model actually suggests some questions you can ask of your data. So that in the case you'll see that it's the worldwide fruit job data. We have over 1 million data points tabulated from the ordering of produce to the delivery of produce to the processing of that produce, all in fantastic digital format. So it's not exciting, it's not pictorial, but what it can do is answer those questions. So you'll see looking at the correlation between the time spent on each job and the yield. And that kind of information on the fly in real time is incredibly useful. So we're cutting down an enormous amount of analytics time that these companies are using up, and they don't have that time. You'll also see that the platform also creates APIs on the fly. So when data is ingested into the system, you'll see that the API is created, and that outward-facing API can be pushed and shared with any of the broad community of technologies that that come on board with the platform. And you'll also see us sharing data. So sharing data, and we've worked for a few years on this now with Steve, who will talk more about this in a moment, but purpose and performance. So when you share data with another technology, you expect it to perform in a certain way. And if you're not satisfied with that performance, there's a framework for moving through that. So again, I probably come at this really from the user side, from the industry side, because they're my customers and they're my clients, and I can't let them down. But by the same token, we have to give all that flexibility. So we've kind of given an API box to a bunch of greengrocers in the East Midlands, and farmers. Sorry, Richard. So what's our evolution strategy? Well, Industry 4.0 is where we're taking these guys. And honestly, the food is obviously essential. We're an island nation. We import 43% of our consumption. Without food, you see what happens when there's no toilet paper. But you imagine that when there's no food. So where are we going to take this evolution? So we're already working to look at using CNN networks, so convoluted neural networks, to start analyzing image data. So the changing patterns within a farm environment. Farms, especially AFP, are incredibly technologically advanced, have a huge ream of data. And we want to bring that together and start bringing that analysis to bear. And as we approach the nexus of AGI, we're ready to move into that area. But the models, the transform models, have got so much better even in the last 12 months that really a standalone utility within the platform, benefit in the platform. You've got something from day one out of the box. So on that note, Steve, would you like to talk about our trust framework and expand on the credibility behind sharing data, I suppose?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Steve Brewer. I'm both from the University of Lincoln and also my own company, Infoculture. I've been working with Alex the last few years, and indeed some projects preceding that on the governance of the data that's shared between organizations in supply chains. So for example, if you think back to Tim's illustration where we had the tiers of the supply chain, the data exchange and the other new services, we're not looking at the governance of the supply chain itself. That's a dynamic process that's up to the businesses. But the mechanisms in which the data can and should be shared. So this is, if you like, a layer that builds on what everything Alex has spoken about. We're interested in governance in the sense of the rules, the standards, the interoperability, but also involving all stakeholders in the processes of agreeing what that governance process is, how it should be executed, what the sanctions, for example, when people abuse that, misuse the data. So it's really, how do we better exploit the data in the system? So that's really what I've been talking about. We started off talking about data trust frameworks as a mechanism for doing this as a high level. We now increasingly talk about trustworthy data frameworks. This is a sort of concept, how we build that. What do we mean by governance and trustworthiness? We sort of discussed this. We've looked at with the way that sort of AI has run away over the course of the project, as Alex has said. We've been thinking about how we can use AI as part of that certification audit process of the system. So you've got almost separate systems coming in and inspecting that the data is being used appropriately. So that's one of the ways we're looking at. But in a nutshell, what we're doing with the implementation of the governance, we've been looking at it for a few years. We've now got to the, if you like, the implementation stage, is breaking down the components of what that means in practice, everything from the high level governance, bringing people together, implementation of services. Obviously, there's a goal to automate as much as that, but really the way we're doing that is breaking it down to the different services and looking at how that can be done. But I'm around for the rest of the day as well to answer further questions.
Thanks, Alex and Steve. So we've got 5 minutes of questions now, so don't go too far away, gents. Steve, if I might just repeat the question so people online can hear. So the question for those online was, what are the blockers that you've seen in the trust framework, and how have you overcome them?
Excellent question. One thing we found right at the beginning, one of the initial drivers for people more broadly interested in sharing data was indeed for the AI. We've actually come full circle over the life cycle of this. And there was I was going to say naive optimism, that's a bit unfair, but we'll just share all the data in the supply chain and lots of great things can happen. We can optimize it, we can make it more resilient. And people discovered quite early on that suddenly these businesses, they didn't want to share and make this data freely available. So I would say that's been the biggest blocker, and that's both the research and the practical solutions has been based around how do we bring these organizations together so that there's and hence the interest in governance at a high level. We're competitors, but there are benefits to us collaborating. So we can develop the technology, the interoperability, etc., but there needs to be this governance around it that ensures that that laws aren't broken about collaboration, etc. So that I would say is the main thing that's just driven the need for quite a complex solution to overcome that reticence and the legal ramifications.
Thank you, Steve. Phil's got a question.
Question from Phil Rowe. Thanks, guys. I think, could you just build on that last point, because you talked about the benefits of collaboration as a way of overcoming those blockers, and I wondered what benefits you're starting to see.
Well, the benefits, we talk about pre-competitive and post-competitive benefits. So obviously, price fixing isn't one of them, because that's kind of the illegal bit in the middle, which obviously you need to clearly be seen to avoiding. One of the projects we looked at as an exemplar was in the Netherlands called iShare, and that was this approach, data trust framework, around the port of Rotterdam. And the driver for that was to reduce the congestion, to make the less waste, because obviously with food in particular, if you can reduce the time, that's less waste. So the benefits are either pre-competitive optimization of processes that benefits a community, or post-competitive, it might be reducing waste or something. So that the need is to bring people together to identify what their problems are that can be addressed.
Could I just add a couple of things? So in fresh produce is a low margin business, so it's come under enormous pressure through COVID, but just through also general market conditions, and taking productive land out of use, et cetera. But where the benefits have started to occur, when I first started working with actors in this industry, there was the hauliers would not share any data with their receivers, shippers were very reticent to share data. Of course, you've got things like marine traffic. But that has really evolved, and especially in the last 5 years. And the benefits are also commercial. So that the hauliers are finding by sharing data and sharing their telemetry, for example, as simple as that, they can start to be, they're more accountable for their service levels. And also, again, it's that reduction of time spent of food in motion and getting it through to the shelves. there's still a bit of a black hole when it comes to the supermarkets, of course. But
Great, thanks, Steve, Alex. Last question for this section from Vince, and there is lots of opportunity later in the demo section to ask more detailed questions of the guys. So.
Thanks very much for that. It was a good presentation. And trust and data aside, you mentioned about putting humans at the centre of this in terms of your end users. What sort of incentives have you had to consider to increase engagement with the system thus far?
Yeah, so that utility is essential, and that transformation, it sounds sort of fairly mundane, but the supply chains are all about doing mundane things regularly, and even more regularly and more urgently in fresh produce, because of course the compelling benefit. If you're bringing melons in from Brazil, you've got 12 days of shipping time, and then essentially the melons will end up on the shelves in 24 hours of arriving in the UK, you hope. So the incentive of that transformation and just being able to save time. So the platform, the ability to share data with another provider or another actor within the supply chain transformed. And again, it sounds pretty mundane, but the outputs are in a format that's been created for an ERP system. So you've got that. You've got the ability to transform data to put your customs declaration together and push that to a freight forwarder. So you've got those time-saving elements, but also when we show the demo, you'll see that analysis for senior management as well, which really doesn't exist, and is so, again, in this industry, so ephemeral that if it's not done quickly, it's not of any use. So we've brought that into it as well. So effectively, it's transparency, visibility, and those available analytics and transformations that make for time saving, which is cost saving, which is straight to the bottom line.
That's great. Thanks, guys. Let's give them a hand. Brilliant. So next up, we've got Siwa and Adam, who are going to talk about the hydrogen testbed.
Hello, everyone. Oh, sorry, it's just stand here. Hi, my name is Siwa, and with my colleague Adam today, we're going to tell you about the hydrogen testbed. So first of all, we're going to look at who is involved in our consortium, the problems we are trying to solve, and the approach we took. Also, Adam is going to walk you through the testbed and then showcase a simulation app that we have built on top of the testbed. We will then come back and look at the future impact and business values of this project, and we'll finish off by highlighting some further resources that you can refer to. So this is our consortium, starting with Motive Fuels, who is a hydrogen producer, and then Reynolds Logistic, who is a transport provider, and us, Hydrologic, who provides hydrogen-powered generator management. And EKFB, they deliver construction projects, so effectively the end customer of the supply chain. So here we have the end-to-end supply chain of hydrogen-powered generator usage represented. So the Digital Catapult National Testbed project obviously sets out to address, improve the resilience, collaboration, and sustainability of supply chains. And for us, specifically, the goal of the hydrogen testbed is to then create a data environment based on real-world relationships and data, where third parties can test business scenarios, hardware, or process innovations as applied to the hydrogen non-road mobile machinery supply chain. So including things like generators, excavators, and other construction machinery. So with the consortium partners, we modeled entities and data via a mapping exercise. We then created an updatable data store, allowing us to ingest live data from the supply chain. We then exposed the functionality via an easy-to-use and flexible API. So this forms the core testbed. And beyond that, we provide a third-party application layer. And as part of the project, we have actually created a demo or a reference application on top of the testbed, which Adam will introduce later on. So the hydrogen supply chain is an emerging supply chain with a lot of unique challenges. And some of those that we have identified include, for example, the lack of data standards, the lack of standard operational processes, lack of live data even. And we also had to find alternatives to what was going to be our single data source. So for this project. So our responses to that have been, first of all, defining data standards, capturing processes and relationships in the supply chain, and also maximizing data availability via parallel data gathering tracks. So drawing data from a wide range of different sources. So I'm going to hand it over to Adam now to talk you through the testbed itself.
Yeah, thanks, Siva. So I'm going to talk about testbed architecture and then look at our first reference application. So with the architecture, we've got 3 main layers. We've got the data sources, so our projects, remote IoT monitoring data, and supply quote information. And then this feeds into the application layer and then the testbed. So within the application, this is where this application set and third-party applications will sit. So we've got data ingestion, supply and demand simulation, and then open call projects. And then the core of the testbed, so the data environment, is an API layer which interfaces with the application layer. We've got a graph database, and then we've got an ontology, which the graph database is based upon. So I'm going to talk more about the ontology and the graph database now. So the ontology, basically we wanted a way to capture a formal representation of relationships, concepts, definitions within the supply chain. It's application database agnostic, although we've chosen the graph database. It's extensible to accommodate the evolving supply chain, so it's easily modifiable. And we've developed it using OWL RDF and LinkML. LinkML allows us to define it, encode, and makes it easily updatable in the future. And then we've chosen to go for RDF graph database. Basically, it allows us to query relational data very easily. And obviously, supply chain is very relational heavy. And then the ontology acts as a schema for accessing and storing the data. So graph database has the ontology attached to it. And this ontology is defined in code and basically easily updatable again. So now I'm going to focus on the API specifically and around data control. So our API endpoints allow creation, deletion, querying, and describing data very easily. It's a secure API, so we use AWS Cognito to manage user identity and access management. Got the concept of built-in private instances, so this enables data segregation. So it protects commercially sensitive information, so each user is assigned a private instance, and this can be shared across multiple users. And then the API is built with usability in mind, so it aims to be an easy way to test and share amongst consortium companies. So now I'm going to look at our first reference application, which is a supply and demand simulation application. So the goals of this application were, so there's 2 main goals. The first was primarily serve as a reference application to allow future third parties to build upon innovations in testbed. And the second was to provide an app that already provides value to the supply chain. So you can visit us later for a live demo of this, but I'm just going to run through some screenshots. So first of all, we've got some inputs. So you can see we've got 2 main sections. We've got project requirements and advanced testbed configuration. So I'm going to focus on the project requirements. So we've got, again, 2 main requirements here. We've got the site location, so the latitude, longitude. If you click this map icon, you can select the location on the map. And then we've got the amount of hydrogen in kilograms. This is per week, so we're simulating on a per week basis. And then if you look at the advanced testbed configuration section, so you can select instances here. So a default instance is shared across all users. So that represents a live version of the supply chain. And then a company can request an instance, and this can be assigned to multiple users. So in this instance, we've got a hydrologic instance with a padlock icon. So only hydrologic will have access to this data. And then, so now I'm going to look at results, but imagine that I've selected the hydrologic instance and clicked to validate using testbed. So these are the results. So if we focus on the table, you can see there's two sections. We've got supply chain flow and weekly metrics. I'm going to look at supply chain flow initially. Within that, we've got the hydrogen source. Then we've got the actual flow of the supply chain. So we've got hydrogen producer, storage provider, and transport provider. And within this, you can see the padlock icon again. So this is the private data that we've selected before. So within the private data, you can have specific attributes or new entities, and these are merged together when you query. And then you can see some of them are highlighted in purple. So basically indicates that this service is part of a linked services. So partner services are all vertically integrated. So you can see the tube trailer, the top row. So the tube trailer rental can only be linked to the fuel transport. And then again, if you click the map, you can view the location of these on a map. And then if we look at weekly metrics now, we've got a breakdown of how much CO2e, cost, and production capacity. And if you click the little question mark icon, you'll see a breakdown of how these are calculated. You can view you can view this in the demo later as well if you want. And now I'm going to pass it over back to Siva.
Thank you, Adam. So as part of the project, we have set our innovation roadmap for the hydrogen supply chain. And firstly, there's going to be the upcoming Open Call 5 project, which I'm super excited about. It is a finance and market modeling tool to enable effective capital deployment across the hydrogen supply chain. I believe it's going to be introduced later on today. And other future ideas include carbon reporting or geographical production analysis and even certification management. And obviously, our long-term project is that the work will evolve to become a hydrogen data management system, leading to a truly connected digital supply chain, which is, of course, the reason why we're all here today. So I'm just going to finish off by highlighting a few resources that you can refer to. We have got our API page on hydrologic.com. You find us on GitHub, where you can see sample applications. So yeah, here are the links and QR code to our website. So please do take a look and get in touch if you're interested. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Siwa and Adam, for a great presentation. So open to questions.
Mohan Sodhi from Base Business School. You said you are going to be a source of data. How much of the data would be about the supply chain itself, and how much would be about the digital technologies used in that supply chain? Because those are different things.
I'll try to answer this question first. The data is mostly, so I guess I can mostly to do with the supply chain as opposed to the technologies.
Including different technologies to produce the green hydrogen.
Oh, right. So, yeah, so I mean, there are different categories of data in the test bed. We certainly have product data. So, you know, for example, green hydrogen from Motive Fuels, you know, one of our consortium partners. So we capture the product attributes to do with the green hydrogen products. So that's one example of data, product data we have. And on top of that, we have, you know, capacity data, we have financial data, and we have some other operational data as well. So, yeah, at the kind of product attribute level, I don't know if I fully answered your question.
And how much data about the digital technologies used in that supply chain? Like I saw IoT over there.
Oh, right. Yes. So the IoT example is it basically relates to the consumption monitoring that we as Hydrologic provide. So we have hydrogen and power monitoring on generator. So based on a construction site project, we can monitor the consumption of hydrogen for the generator, obviously, and sort of compare that with the expected power outcome power requirements of the site. That will give us efficiency data on the generator, for example. So that's an example of the project data that we are capturing inside the testbed. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Great question. I think we've got time for one more question in this section. As we said, the guys, as with the food test bed, are going to be outside in the demo area later. So anyone who wants to get into more detail. Nick's got a question.
I have, yes. Well done, both. And I think well done in getting the producers and the consumers together. That's the critical point, I think, in meeting their joint requirements. This needs to scale up to have the major impact that I think is achievable here. What's your route to scaling up, and what do you need from government to make that happen?
Yeah. I think first of all is showing the market immediate value of the work that we have done, which is the reason why we have created the simulation app, because it really helps visualize what is going on in the supply chain, highlighting potential sort of bottlenecks and just highlighting opportunities. So that way we hope to get more people involved in providing data to the testbed, participating in this, and hopefully they see value in being able to and understand how eventually their investment in more assets in more production can pay off.
So do you see it as a commercial thing in the center, or as a utility that is available and provided as a sort of public service?
Very good question. I think right now we would want to get more people commercially interested first. Yeah. As you said, we need the volume in order for the, I suppose, the data to really have a huge impact. Yeah.
Thanks, Nick. I think you've got a candidate there for a lunchtime conversation, Siwa. So yeah, great. So let's give the guys another round of applause. So next up, we've got the textiles test bed. So I can see Mark coming up, and I think we've got Nathan and Toby lurking as well to join in. So over to you guys.
Good morning. Hi, guys. I'm Mark Lopresto, as I said, and I'm with the COO of Circle 8, and I'll be introducing our testbed circular textiles supply chain domain and use cases. And then Nathan Kirkham, who's Responsive's Director of Consulting, is going to go into discussing our approach to the testbed's technical architecture. And Toby, CEO for Entity, is going to wrap up with a demo. So why a circular textile supply chain? Well, simply put, because it's the solution to the linear supply chain, which is approaches to make, use, and then throw away or dispose. And this linear model causes over 700,000 metric tons of non-reusable textiles to be thrown away, well, actually incinerated or landfilled annually. And at a cost of roughly 100 pounds per ton, that's 70 million pounds per annum being spent to actually destroy a useful resource that could be turned into new fiber. So that's why we're here. The circular textile value chain replaces this disposal tier with a three-tier approach. First of all, you need a collection of non-reusable textiles that still have value, they just can't be reworn or resold. You need those collected with a network that's discrete and segregated, unique. They can't be commingled with other wastes that would, or with waste that would harm them or contaminate them. You need a tier 2 of what we call automated textile sorting and pre-processing facilities. And the name pretty much describes what it is. And this is the network that would be rolled out. The key function here is to take those garments that are mixed by textile type, et cetera, sort them in and pre-process them so that they can be then sold on to bespoke textile recyclers for particular textile compositions.
And just an FYI, for ATSPs, it's also the focus of a demonstrator project funded by Innovate UK, which Circle 8 is participating in. And with that springboard, we're looking to build and commission the first ATSP in the UK by the end of 2025. And we're looking forward to implementing a commercial version of the testbed that we're building with that ATSP. The final tier is comprises the textile recycling plants, and those are going to come on stream as supply of feedstock becomes available to them. In 10 years, this network of the 3 tiers could conceivably supply 60% of the textile that's purchased in the UK every year, rather than pretty much sourcing it from abroad. These 3 tiers that we've described are mirrored in our testbed, and I need to go through this quickly to pretty much provide time for Nathan and Toby. You see the tiers here. We've divided up 2 classes of transactions, one focusing on recycling wool and polyester, and we're going to be also taking data from the demonstrator project and uploading that into our testbed as well. The partners in our collaboration, their logos are all down at the bottom, and of course we have the ACT collaboration team participants there as well. ACT's quite interesting to us because they're also a prospective future customer for our testbed, and it's quite a impressive consortium and really interested companies that we'd like to join in. Finally, wrapping up, the use cases that we focused on, because these are the digital tools those partners are definitely looking for, are logistics optimization, track and traceability, and environmental performance. Each of these is critical to provide integrity to the circular supply chain and proof of provenance and chain of custody. Nathan?
Okay, so I'll just give a quick overview of the technical architecture for the testbed, so the data platform that underpins the testbed. So thinking about the issue, it was that as a data owner, as a source of data, I want to be sharing my data so that I can do things that we've talked about here, optimizing logistics, reporting on environmental impact, and so on. So I need to share that data with whoever's going to provide that kind of analysis. But also I need to control what is shared, and I need to change what is shared as needs emerge. So in this particular industry, we don't really know what the future sharing and reporting and supply chain will look like because it hasn't been built yet. But so we know it will change. But when I share, I'm going to worry because I've got things like my customers may be identifiable. So client information, GPS locations, pretty much would tell my competitors who it is that I'm buying from and selling to. And I'm very worried about that. My operational efficiency is visible. I might start showing how long it takes me to do certain aspects of my business, which might inform my competitors, might inform my customers or suppliers of information that I don't really want to share. So part of what the testbed does is it can ingest that data in whatever form it takes, and then share it appropriately with the users of that data, the analysis partners maybe we have, or whoever it may be, in appropriate ways. So for logistics optimization, we may need to share detailed information because you need to know exactly where the truck is at any given moment to allow that particular function to deliver value. Whereas perhaps for environmental impact reporting, we're going to aggregate that data up. So it's just truck miles at an aggregated level, or how much fuel we've used this month, or whatever it might be, so that we can appropriately share information in a controlled way with those that need it. And I, as an owner of that data, can be confident that it's being used appropriately, and I can change that when I need to. So what does that look like really from a testbed platform? So what we have is the partners that are the people that are sharing data. So that that data might be coming in from ERP systems, from logistics systems, whatever it may be. We've also got more manual contributions. So within the textile supply chain, there's a global worldwide supply chain that may be using less digitally enabled systems, might be spreadsheets, things like that. Maybe it's even web forms and so on to fill in. And control of that is within the partner. So the partner decides what data is being ingested and how's that being shared, and what's the different data users able to see. And that's done with a permission structure that's within that. And us as the platform administrators control who's got access and what particular data the platform can control. And in the testbed that we've got, Entropy, which we'll see in a demo in a moment, are the users of that data. They're consuming the data to provide analysis, visualization, and so on. And some of the controls that we have designed into the testbed are really off activities we've done around open banking. So if people are familiar with sharing their financial data with various other apps and third parties, so that needs to be done. We've all got massive amounts of concerns about that. So what's the control models there? What's the permissions models that allow us to be confident that we're sharing data, and we know that if we're uncomfortable, we can change that. So that was kind of how this testbed is designed. So just a couple of examples of how this works. So we've got a couple of purchase orders coming in from two different partners within this. There's slightly different structures. Purchase orders are all similar. We understand what they're like, but we're going to have slightly different data for different ones, and we want to be able to ingest that without having to standardize and normalize all that data. And so we have an API that allows us to do that. And so what it critically allows is that there's no coordination and agreement needed across the supply chain. So we don't need to all agree what all these different data formats are in this emerging market. We can add things as we need because we don't know what the future's going to hold. The data sharing stays with the data providers so they stay confident. And then we can add additional data into the infrastructure without having different processes, different technologies and governance. So the whole decision making around data sharing doesn't need to update every time we need to add new capability.
Yeah, so after the data's gone through Nathan's platform, it comes to us. So really quickly, so we call what we do in this process the hub. Why does a testbed need a hub? Well, in some cases, the data needs to be put together to make it more discoverable. Sometimes data needs to be generated by linking certain data sets to generate such arrival alerts and things like this. But also sometimes the way data is segmented and the permission controls that you want to put on it are transient. They're kind of situational. So that's kind of what we do. So our initial focus in this context is the in-transit part between the supply chain tiers. So we're looking at a consignment of mixed textiles going from ShredStation to Chimera, that getting sorted in the Chimera hub. And then the second journey is is the processed consignments going onward. We've successfully integrated with the responsive platform. We have used tools within Entropy Land to generate synthetic data for testing and demo purposes. So some of the data that I'm going to present now is synthetic, but this platform that I'm about to present is fully scalable live. The kind of core pieces of our tech in here are the proprietary core, which is basically a sophisticated tagging algorithm, and our proprietary ontology. So if we click into this, which should play. Is it playing? No. No. I have no idea what to do now, guys. I'm really sorry. Yeah, so this is a demo that plays through and is awesome. Is there any way to yeah, there you are. Maybe we can show it later. That obviously the formatting didn't come through in the press. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you guys. Another great presentation. So questions?
James has got a question.
Cheers. Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation there. I guess I'm going to be a bit devil's advocate in here. So how do they trust you as the central platform holder to be the authority of their data and not maybe manipulate it? What kind of trust and mechanisms have you got in place there as the mediator?
Yeah, so I guess I mean, yes, it's a challenge at an industry-wide scale. I mean, I think initially for the testbed, we've got the example of the ATSP and the need to support that, so the supply chain that is part of that activity will be a first stage of that. But part of this is to how do we explore that? Is it going to be led by a particular major, perhaps fashion manufacturer or retailer or something as being that trusted party, and we're a technology provider for that? Is it going to be more industry wide? I think these are questions that need to be explored, frankly.
Absolutely, it'd be fantastic to work with you on that and explore that further.
Brilliant. Thanks. Another question at the front.
I'm trying to understand test bed versus are you creating a fourth party logistics provider? Meaning, I don't know the ambition of the test bed. Test bed for me suggests like somebody can go and test something versus this seems more like a fourth party logistics provider where data is centralized. Maybe once the data is centralized, you can optimize it as well on behalf of the various partners. So is this like a fourth party logistics service ambition, or is it a test bed where anybody walking on the road can go in and?
I get the question. Yeah. So it's certainly not a fourth party logistics service. No, it's a test bed. So the ambition is to centralize the data and put the data together and make it discoverable by solution vendors that want to test their solutions in real world environments. And so, yeah, there's several steps that we've taken to do that. First of all, obviously integrating with various supply chain partners, bringing those into a central platform. Yeah, a lot of kind of data processing, cleaning, curation processes. And then in the second stage, the hub, that's where the data is kind of put together. So let me just take you in, the example that the demo was supposed to show is sometimes data comes from 2 or 3 different stakeholders. And actually one of the key data points that we want to provide up to testbed users would be the time that that particular consignment arrived at its location, which can only be generated by putting those data together in real time. So it's a platform that brings together data, makes sense of it, makes it discoverable, applies permissions and controls to allow testbed users to test and deploy their technologies. Does that make sense? In the examples that we're providing, ShredStation, for example, are a logistics company that they maybe don't have access to the various other supply chain tiers data. So it's kind of there. Yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Toby. So that concludes this presentation. One more to go. To complete the quartet, we've got OBA. So let's give the guys a round of applause.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Before I start, I think I need to make sure that the video does work because we have a video on ours as well. If there's someone behind maybe controlling it, if they could tap, if it doesn't work from the remote, that would help us essentially. Yeah. So good morning, everyone. My name is Obiye Ada Ibrama, and I am representing the Spare Parts Digital Supply Chain Testbed. And we are one of the 4 testbed projects that are being funded by Digital Catapults under the Digital Supply Chain Program, as we all know. The fund there is the general fund of the entire project, and essentially was supposed to be taken out, but I don't know why it's still on there. As we all know, and as Tim mentioned at the start of his speech, these projects came as due to the fact that we need a controlled environment where technology solutions can be deployed and can be accessed for their potential benefits without affecting real world business operations. So the members of our consortium, we are 6 in number. We're being led by the MBT Group, which is our local SME in collaboration with Northumbria University that takes on the role of research and development. We have Vitech Solutions to support in the sense of technology and data. We have Northeast Automotive Alliance and Troy Group to help connect us to the automotive and manufacturing industry at large. And to satisfy all legal aspects, we have Wombobon Dickinson to help with, the trust and all of the into. Now, I've spoken briefly on what the aim is, but the aim of our project essentially is to develop and design a sector-agnostic digital twin testbed that models an end-to-end spare parts supply chain. And like we've said before, technology solutions, applications will be deployed within the environment, and users of the said testbed would come into the environment, test and try the solutions, test and try the applications, without affecting their businesses in the real world. We have a few objectives or a few deliverables, which is a model of the end-to-end supply chain, like we've stated, a digital twin that is accessible by users, a connected digital supply chain community, which we're working on with Troy and NEAA, and a framework for post-funding development. So what are we going to do after the funding period? And the university is working on impact case studies and other form of research to support the project essentially. So at the start of this project, we were able to frame our ideas and develop a roadmap of the capabilities that we want our testbed to possess, that we want our testbed to address. We have activities that we have split into 4 phases of analysis, core capabilities, deployment, and further development. In the core capabilities, we focus mainly on 3 capabilities: inventory management, that's where we have our inventory optimization models and inventory tracking. For demand and supply, we have our demand forecasting models and supply shock analysis, where we do sentiment analysis on news topics from legitimate sites. In the future, we look at expanding that into social media analysis as well. And lastly, scope 3 analysis. Everyone's talking about it. It's the big topic. Everyone wants to know what their carbon emissions are. Everyone wants to know. It's very important now for businesses that want to continue. So we have derived emission quantities by looking at the supply chain activities from start to finish. So mining, production, manufacturing, transport, fuel consumption, etc. So these are the 3 capabilities that we are focused on right now as the first sort of the first draft of the project. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the data requirements, because as we all know, in the different levels, the different tiers, different companies involved in a supply chain, the data present differently. Just like the textile said before, data would not be the same, but essentially to address our capabilities, we have an idea of the sort of data that we want. For example, for inventory, we want to have the product SKUs and inventory through a period of time. We'd also like to have lead times of these said SKUs that would also expand onto the demand forecasting and shock analysis. We want to know where your suppliers are at, the locations. To address scope 3 analysis, we'd also want to know transport routes and modes of transport. We also need activity-based data. How much do you produce? How much do you put together to manufacture a single tip as a spare part? So before I go into the demo, hopefully the video works, fingers crossed. I just wanted to say that the demo just shows, the first draft just shows an overview of the functionality of the test bed. If you do want to see a lot more, you can meet us after the presentations in the hall. We would show you an in-depth sort of view on the test bed. Also, the video, if it plays, is from the point of view of our end customer, which is the manufacturing company using the spare parts in their operations, essentially. While we're trying to do that, so essentially we're working the end consumer or the customer of the project right now. The main focus of the project is Unipress, and we're working hand in hand with them. They're very interested in and they're the ones that helped frame our ideas or our core capabilities for this project. They're very interested in the carbon emissions as well. They have a good inventory tracking system going on, and they just want to see all of these things across all tiers connected together, and how they can, make orders at the right time. I think that's what we all want in our supply chains: when to make orders, how much to make, and how does it affect our carbon emissions. Would it cost less to order within Europe than maybe China, Asia, for instance? Is it cheaper in terms of obviously other costs, and is it cheaper in terms of carbon emissions? So to be able to gauge both areas and then make a decision is one of the main reasons why we're doing this test bed. Unfortunately, the video is not working, but I'll be happy to show anyone after at the back. We'll just speak on further steps in terms of servitization. Right now, our project or our test bed is a single tenant application. It's just taking in the members of the supply chain that we are focused on now, but we intend to improve in terms of architecture, content, and access control. For architecture, we're looking at a multi-tenant application where users come within the testbed and make profiles, or companies come within the testbed, make profiles, and within those profiles, they can have sub-profiles as well, and then they'd have access to their workspace, that the testbed environment. And what sort of content would they have access to? They'd have access to the dashboards, the reports, applications that we have created, and applications that hopefully from other open calls can be connected to our test beds, workbooks of their data essentially saved, and a model of the supply chain that they are currently in or connected to. And for access control, we just have 4 roles. A viewer, as the name states, is just a viewer. They cannot make changes. They cannot touch anything, to just view and see the functionalities. And for the contributor can make changes in terms of measures, because every company has different processes. Every company has different measures in terms of profit margins or in terms of failure rates and how much a failure costs to that company. So a contributor can do that, can put measures in at the different areas or different tabs or functionalities. And a member can do the roles of a contributor and can assign roles. So essentially the member is the major profile, can assign roles to the sub-profile of either viewer or contributor. Also a contributor can basically upload data or connect data. And then the admin is typically the admin. We look at the back end, take care of the test bed and make sure everything is running, help create and help delete profiles within the workspace. Just to note that we're not just looking at improving in just this aspect. Obviously, when we get users to use our test bed, we take their feedback and then improve on what we've done, because we see this as not just a 1-year project or a 2-year project. We want to improve even after the funding period is over. So that's the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, OBA, and apologies for the technical issues. So what we'll do, as OBA says, you'll be able to see the demo up close and personal in the later sessions, and maybe we can get it on our virtual hub later, and you can find out more about that later on. So thank you. Any questions?
Hi, great presentation. One of the key questions is that I can see some innovative aspects on the platform, but do you guys do analysis on what's already in the market, which already does 80% of what you're trying to build from scratch?
Yeah, so our test bed essentially is, we've taken what the market has and we've also taken what the market does not have. For instance, not all, especially in the industry that we're working with, not all companies can keep track of their inventory as well as the emissions that just holding inventory can even do. So we've connected in such a way where you can see the typical things, just like the inventory, like almost everyone should have a good inventory management system, but then you can take from the benefits of the, especially for scope 3, we've put so much work into our scope 3 analysis, although the figure that I was going to show was not going to be an accurate one because data is missing in transit. We don't have waste data, but we've taken account of so much processes within the supply chain, so we can assist people. You don't necessarily have to think and start calculating on your own. If we have an idea of your process, of the processes within your company, if we have a number for inventory, for transport and stuff like that, we'd be able to collate everything together, give you a number. And same for demand forecasting. We have inventory optimization models that can give you an adequate number to order every time as it gets real-time data, it updates. So that's, yeah.
Thank you. Time for one more question. Nick?
Excellent stuff. I think this chimes very well with Minister Ghani's recent task and finish group report on the minerals, and which was contributed to by the Society of Motor Manufacturers. I was just wondering, it is in the nature of the industry that the rules of origin are going to become increasingly important commercially, and in this supply chain. Parts can cross borders more than once, go back and forth as they are turned into more larger parts and then put into cars and so on. Do you have the capacity to track right back to the basics and to track those multiple journeys, possibly across money borders, so that the rules of origin can be applied and assured by the end manufacturer?
So a lot of we haven't connected essentially with the raw materials, so like down to the origin, down to the start of it, the miners and stuff. But that is our intent. We are working, we have a good relationship with the end consumer. We have working relationships with we have the distributor, we are the distributor. We have working relationships with the suppliers, and in turn, if we can get trust, because a lot of people are concerned, if I give you information on my supplier, what are you going to do with my data if I give you information? So we need to essentially offer this up to them, show them our intent, show them the overview of what we want to achieve, and then get connected to their own suppliers. So in this case, the raw material suppliers in that case, and then we'd be able to do that. So for now, for the project, just to be able to do all of the things, we do have to simulate a lot of data for the like raw material suppliers, but the formulas and the algorithms all are working well, so we can assure that everything will blend.
Well done. This should get around last but one syndrome, I think, which is prevalent now. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Amazing. I think Nick's going to have a busy lunchtime getting around all of these test beds. OBA, thank you very much. Let's give her a big hand. So thank you to all the test beds for fantastic presentations. I have the pleasure of working closely with these guys, seeing this stuff develop, week on week, month on month. So I find it fascinating. Each of these supply chains is different, but they're all fascinating in their own way. And you can see that the teams are really working on challenges, some of which are specific to their supply chain, but many are just really applicable across many supply chains. So it's fantastic work. As we said, you can find out more about that in the demo sessions, and maybe see some of the demos that weren't able to play. So we're going to break now for a coffee. So this section, welcome back everyone. This section, we're going to do a panel discussion. So if I could ask the panel to come on up. Did you all send your walk-on music? So no, so yeah, if you grab a seat and I'll do some introductions. So we'll start at the end. So Sally Dayton, what I should say before I go into individuals, what we've got here is an all-star panel from the Digital Supply Chain Hub ecosystem. So we've got representatives of industry, academia, challenge sponsors, industry leadership group, got kind of covered the whole spectrum of the dish ecosystem, and we're also covering the sectors I think that we've just talked about in the test beds. So and that was nearly perfect. The slide and where everyone sat is almost there. So Sally Dayton, founder of Laundry, that I've just now actually pronounced correctly for the first time ever. You'd think it was easy, wouldn't you, Laundry? Yeah. So Sally's been working on one of the Open Call 3 challenges, and works in across the textile industry, let's say, but specifically Laundry is about repurposing denim and getting that back into resale to consumers. We've then got Ali Reza, who's the head of subject in Northumbria University for supply chain operations and logistics. William McColgan next is again working on, so Ali Reza's the test bed, which you've just heard about. He's working on the spares test bed that OBA spoke about. So William is from McColgan's Quality Foods in Strabane, Northern Ireland. So William is a SME that's involved in one of the challenges in Open Call 3. So one of the solutions that's being developed is being deployed, in William's company. And also William's joined our industry leadership group. So he's one of the voices from industry that we're using to really set our challenges and what we're trying to achieve in the Digital Supply Chain Hub. And last but by no means least, the newest entry to the DISH ecosystem is Simon. And Simon is sponsoring one of the challenges we've got in our latest open call 5, in the hydrogen testbed, hydrogen sector. And so Simon works for, he's the founder of Hydrogenous, and they are working on developing this new hydrogen supply chain, implementing new infrastructure. So, all-star panel, and we're going to go through a bit of a discussion. So, a few individual questions and then some more general ones. So, I'm going to start with Ali Reza, I think.
Me?
So, Ali Reza, what are you going to sing for us today?
I'm not a good singer, so.
No, I'm just buying time. So, Ali, so could you give us a flavour for kind of what's required to develop a test bed to make it sustainable and feasible, for the future?
Yes, sure. Before I answer this question, I shall say that alongside developing these test beds, we have been doing a piece of research, data collection through the interviews and workshops with the potential stakeholders. And the answer that I'm giving to this question is actually the summary of our finding from these potential stakeholders. So it's not just our perception, it's the perception of the potential stakeholders. So if I really want to answer this question, team, I can look at it in two different perspectives. First of all, looking at it from the readiness aspects of utilizing the testbed, I would say perhaps the most important one is the leadership buy-in. The leaders of the organizations, they really want to see their return on investment before using the testbed. And then it's also important to develop a collaborative environment between the partners or the users of the testbed. That is particularly important to make sure that the data and information is shared in a safe and secure environment. Another important element of being ready to utilize the testbed is also having the quick wins and making sure that we start with the low-hanging fruit projects, especially going back to the first point that I said, like a return on investment. This is particularly important. And also, upskilling of the staff and the management skills through this digital transformation. And last but not least, developing the legal documents, like, for example, data sharing agreements, that organizations make sure that they actually share the data in a safe and secure environment. This is something that we considered significantly in our own testbed. Then second point, or the second perspective, you're looking at the functional capabilities. I would say perhaps being ready to be open for the data or data openness, of course, with the consideration of the privacy and security. For example, some suppliers may not be really ready to share some type of data, and we need to appreciate that. The second point would be just the timely and efficient data sharing practices, especially in terms of the data integrity and quality. Because at the end of the day, we want the testbed to deliver what we actually ask. And finally, I would say responsible and thoughtful data traceability, again, to be embedded into the testbed. But as overall, if I want to summarize that, we want to make a testbed with a strategic and continuous approach to meet the long-term supply chain goals for the organizations. So hopefully I answered the question.
Yeah, thank you, Ali. And as well, I think you've, it's maybe worth understanding, you've found a place for the testbed to exist in the future. So
yes, of course. Again, the sustainability of the testbed, as Obia just mentioned, we don't want the testbed just for the course of the next couple of years for the project. So we want that to be there forever.
And I know we have developed it for the automotive sector, but that could be again for any sector. So hopefully we are going to build or develop a nice space. Can you see me? Yeah, nice space for the organizations using the test beds. Again, considering all the collaborative environments, data sharing agreements, and of course, in terms of the knowledge exchange opportunities. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, thank you, Ali. And lots of parallels there with what Steve was saying as well around the data and the trust. Certainly a big challenge for all the test beds to overcome. So that's great. Thank you. So William, coming on to you. So you represent industry. So what are some of the challenges you face that can be helped with digital technology in your industry?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Yeah, I think from SMEs in particular, but for all sizes of organizations, and there's definitely improvements to be had in how this information is shared and flow through the systems. I think from an SME perspective in particular, we don't really have access to a lot of these technologies. We're constrained on our access to talent and digital talent. And if you're a small food company trying to attract a developer, you're up against financial services, fintech, tech companies. So it's difficult from an SME perspective in particular to access these things. But I think across the board, if I look at my company's supply chain, there are probably multiple full-time equivalents shuffling spreadsheets on a given day, which is not an especially value-added activity. We could use those people better elsewhere. And it's also prone to error. So I think we'll have a better consistency and a better use of resources if we can have these things more truly automated. And I think there's genuine additional value to be created by these technologies also if we can better match supply and demand and model those things and get our machine learning and AI models to avoid the wastage, avoid the missed sales. There's genuine value to be created with these technologies for companies of any size.
Yeah, and as you mentioned there, the twin challenge of not only addressing the supply chain issue, but also the upskilling of the people to be able to do that. And that's certainly something we've found in each of the challenges, and where almost you have to develop a capability to then take on whatever the new solution is, and it certainly is evident that you've done that in your organization.
Yeah, and it's been a great help to have you, Blockwoody, making it within our reach. So the blockchain stuff is not a trivial technology, but these guys have been able to package it for us in such a way that it's within the grasp of a technologist that we can hire.
Yeah. Thank you. Sally, coming to you now. So yeah, from your perspective, you're working in one of the challenges, and it's maybe gone in a slightly different direction. But what are the benefits of collaboration that you've seen in this ecosystem that you're now part of? It's not.
Sorry, would help if I knew how to turn it on. In a room full of digital people, and I don't know how to turn on a mic. Yeah, no, it's been really good actually. I've been in a cohort with amazing reverse resources and John from Renewo, and that a lot of our project has been driven towards fibre and traceability of fibre and materials, whereas laundry is actually a remanufacturing business. We're a startup that reprocess and refinish denim onshore circularly. So it's been great. I've got to connect with new people within our space. So my team and I are all denim specialists. We've worked in the industry for far too long, 20 years working with Levi's, M&S, Tesco, Wrangler, all the big brands. And most of us have helped drive sustainability through the supply chain for those brands, working a lot in Bangladesh, Pakistan, everywhere. And we saw the need to bring this onshore and have a circular UK facility to support them with their stock. So for us, understanding all the elements of the whole sustainable chain from a brand's perspective has been invaluable. We are also handling projects aside from the laundry, which we're funding. So I've connected with Made By, with Paola. We're working on a special project at the moment in the adaptive space, working on some brand new denim for a celebrity, Sophie Morgan. She's a disability ambassador. So that connection and the ability to look at a digital product passport on that product has been fantastic. We've connected with Nathan and the team who are all working on the big circular system with a recycler. We're all kind of connected together. So again, there's learning there from us, how we will approach waste. And then I met up with Dom and the guys from uBlockity, who have a platform where we can keep and hold compliance data. So as a new manufacturer in the UK, to actually have to follow every brand's audits, we've got orders of 1.6 million from River Island next. We're in Tesco tomorrow. We're talking to New Look again on Friday. But they all have different compliance systems. So for us to have a central platform from this and learn from it, that they can all upload their information or we can share ours, will have a huge, fantastic financial benefit for our business, because if we had to do everybody's audit, it would kill us overnight financially. So the things that we've learned from this has been really good for laundry for me. So I thank you. And the funding is fantastic. It's helped us go to a trade show in April, the industry trade show, and fund our pilots for River Island, which we did in Spain in December. So it's been great for us. Can't thank you enough.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you, Sally. It's really great to see from a program perspective that we're getting we're developing these solutions, but then by putting you guys together in a room, everyone's spotting, that solution that's developed in food, it can actually help me in textiles in your case. And I'm hearing so many of those conversations, even today. Clive, who's just left, wants to come and talk to the hydrogen testbed and the food testbed, Alex. So someone who's involved in one part of the dish program, developing stuff, seeing this stuff and thinking, that can help me. And that's what the ecosystem's about, right? That's absolutely what we're here for. So that's a fantastic story. Thank you, Sally. I'll come to Simon now. So yeah, Simon, welcome to DC. First time here. I think you've got quite a unique perspective on some of this stuff. So with working in the testbed, we've heard a lot about the testbed's detail this morning, and you're sponsoring a challenge in Open Call 5 to work with a testbed and a tech company to develop a solution. So I guess my question is, from an industry kind of standpoint, what's valuable about putting the testbeds and tech solutions together to come up with solutions?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, delighted to be here and involved. Our business, Hydrogenous, is about making hydrogen, low carbon hydrogen, to give, to sell to companies who want to decarbonize, whether that be the switch from natural gas or diesel to hydrogen. That's quite a new and nascent industry sector that's growing. The government's got great plans for that, and we're hoping to be at the forefront of delivering on that. But as a result, the supply chain and building trust and confidence and transparency is absolutely paramount for anyone to say, I'm going to buy into that, whether that be in the supply chain or developers like us that need to know how much it's going to cost to get the molecules to the end user, or indeed to the end user to say, well, how do I know this is a good deal? Because there's not a transparent market yet. So coming into this introduction from Hydrologic and the testbed that they've been developing with partners is really, let's say, valuable to us to say, okay, so here's the end-to-end supply chain to deliver to an end user, and I can see the various steps in it. Where's the innovation that we can bring to close down some of those maybe gaps or cost barriers that are going to cause us problems and therefore the end user problems. So I'm really excited about that, and we've got a selected partner that's going to deliver a tool which will enable end users and ourselves and other developers the transparency of what it's going to cost and what's the supply chain look like, what does good look like. Really excited about that.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Simon. And you touch on some common themes that we've been hearing about more this morning, and the trust and transparency thing is obviously massive across everything that we're doing in the test beds and some of what we'll hear this afternoon as well in the challenges. So yeah, great stuff. So I think I'll open it up now to the more general conversations. So back to sort of the digital technologies. So where do you folks see digital technologies can have the biggest impact in supply chains?
Can I start?
Yep, please.
I think if you look at this into the context of the supply chain, I would say perhaps the primary impact is going to be improving the visibility in the supply chain. Doesn't matter what sector, I think this is the big thing, especially if you're looking at the supply chain resilience, as Filippo just mentioned this morning. So improving the visibility of the data sharing and data in the supply chain. And alongside that, as an ultimate result, I would say supply chain resilience, supply chain efficiency, again, environmental sustainability, looking at it. So supply chain excellence. So these could be perhaps a longer term benefits or the impacts of digital transformation with digital platforms or digital twins like a testbed.
Yeah, I'd agree completely with Ali. I'm thinking about an instance this week where we had an interruption in our flour supply, and what that results in is somebody looking to see can they find a motor for the particular machine that failed, but also people coming up with phone lists of contacts. Who can I call for bags of flour? Will I ring around? If I talk to that person, how much of a pinch of salt should I take with what they're telling me? Whereas if that was all digitized and available and trusted, yeah, it takes all that work and panic out of that. Things would just redirect. We would be able to properly match the resources with who was most willing to pay for them.
Yeah, great. And I think I'll let Simon come in as well. Is that sort of kind of vision and where's the challenge that we need to keep feeding into our program so we can keep driving the innovation to meet those needs. Simon. Nothing further. Yeah.
For me, I think speaking from the fashion and textiles industry, our industry is changing rapidly at the moment, but we need legislation to come into play. When that comes in and the extended producer responsibility starts to be more every day, the transparency throughout the supply chain will be vital. So the technologies of these platforms to be able I saw Fiber Trace was in one of the groups as well, but to be able to source the product right from the cotton field all the way through the supply chain and to be able to share that visibility with the end customer is where our industry has to head and it's heading. So, yeah.
And that, as we said, that's a theme that comes out in almost everything we're touching. And I'm sure Sumit and Anam are kind of ears pricking up at that. They're going to talk more about that this afternoon. But several of our solutions and several of our test beds are looking at that. I also wanted to mention, I've seen Alok and the team in the room. WMG have developed this risk and resilience, supply chain resilience toolkit that everyone, framework and toolkit that supply chain businesses can use to assess their own kind of resilience and work out what to do next. So yeah, good linkages there. So we've talked a lot about collaboration so far. So I'd be interested to get your views on where how can we collaborate more and what are the barriers in the way of that effective collaboration in supply chains.
I suppose that's the point at which to plug the digital supply chain portal, is it? Which is launching in April, which I think is
Go ahead. Yeah.
But it is. I mean, what's the alternative to somebody who's not plugged in and an SME? We do a Google search, and whoever pays most to pop up on my screen is the first result, and I know nothing of them. Whereas if there's a community like this which has been developed, and there's some authentication of the people getting onto it, then that has more credibility and more trust, I think. And we're able to learn off peers. I've had conversations with people I've met in this room who are able to tell me their experience with vendors for better, for worse. And you're able to de-risk if you have a known community or prepared to vouch for particular solutions. So I think this is certainly part of it. Otherwise, it's LinkedIn, which again is not particularly well curated as far as an untrusting purchaser goes. It's a sales channel rather than the community of people that are going to help you de-risk.
That's a really interesting perspective. You've actually got a business need to collaborate in terms of de-risking your supply chain. So it's kind of, there's a real need for collaboration. It's not It's not a fluffy thing that we should do to have a nice day out. It's something we need to do for our businesses.
And I think following that, that's why we really need to look at the depth of the collaboration. So again, building the trust. So I think this is a tough game. This is not something that is okay, tell the businesses to come and try the test bed. We need to be having a very careful approach to the businesses and start conversation with them, build that collaboration over the time, be patient, and then hopefully they will have the buy-in. So the depth of the collaboration is very much important before even inviting them to share the data and use the test bed.
Yeah, for me, the barriers are people, actually. It's the knowledge that's actually in the product teams in the UK. If we look at some of the businesses, some teams are much more knowledgeable on actually the opportunities that are available than others. I find in a lot of companies I've worked in as a consultant, the sustainability team may be responsible for all these kind of practices around circularity, but then they're not joined up with the buyers. The buyers are still focused on delivering margin. So it's actually bringing the knowledge to both areas. And at the moment, our industry is really stretched. The fashion industry is in a terrible state. And it did, to be honest, it deserves to be. It should have been embracing sustainability a lot earlier than it has. So it's like there's less people in product teams to actually take the responsibility to learn this technology and adopt it into the businesses. So I think it's how we educate and embrace this platform and literally get that information into the businesses. How do we tell the big businesses this technology exists? That's the hardest challenge we've got.
Yeah, wonderful. As we've seen, that people challenge is as big as all the other technical challenges, isn't it? If not bigger. How are we doing for time? We've got a bit of time left. So, sorry.
Yeah, just picking up that point, listening this morning to how some of the challenges have overcome the concerns around data transparency, anonymization, segregation of access, and so on. It's quite heartening to say actually it can work if you open with an open mind and work through some controls and governance that will enable you to transfer data in the knowledge that you're going to get something valuable back again, but equally you're not going to give away your trade secrets and your IP. So it's positive that has happened so far just in this room.
Great. So we've got a reason for doing all this stuff. We obviously want it adopted in the end. A lot of what we've talked about is the development and then the testing and the deployment and stuff. But adoption. So what do you see are the biggest challenges towards actually adopting digital technologies in our supply chains?
Can I go first?
Please do.
I think something that we noticed, which is perhaps could be quite interesting for you to know, in automotive supply chain, and I guess perhaps it could be in other supply chains as well. There are lots of organizations that are not really ready to adopt the digital technology. And interestingly, there are still many organizations, manufacturers, that they rely on the physical servers, like still using the Excel spreadsheets physically, and not having them in cloud, for example, not having like Internet of Things in terms of sharing the data. Very traditional approach to data sourcing, data sharing, and also for the adoption of the data. So I think this could be one of the biggest challenges to use or to adopt the digital technology, including the test beds.
William?
Yeah, I would say for us, again, as an SME, we have a limited capacity to change the commercial landscape. Yeah, what we're developing with uBlockwoody, we're trying to generate, we think that our results and our compliance results are better than others. So we're opening the book to them through blockchain. Every retailer will be able to see our micro results and our nutritional results, all that kind of stuff. But we can't really make that happen on our own. Whereas if through here, so I think it's a similar solution Laundry are using with uBlockwoody. If we can convince Tesco, if we can convince Marks and Spencers or Waitrose or one of these to adopt this new standard, then all of a sudden all of our peers, all of our upstream partners, our downstream partners, is a really big network effect once one of these things becomes the accepted solution and format. And once that trust
earn trust concept starts to become the norm, then we were the head of it. We get the benefit from obviously the differentiation of it, but it starts to move the industry in a way that just an SME couldn't, whereas a solution through something like Digital Catapult might actually be able to move the needle for the industry.
And I know from our conversations that you see that as driving a competitive edge for your company, because as you say, you're kind of that premium end of better than the rest at that stuff. So using digital technology and driving it maybe faster than other people want to do actually gives you an edge in the market. Yeah, so that's fantastic. Sally, did you want to add?
Yeah, I agree. This is it. We're, as a new business in that space, you have to lead by example, and you have to adopt these technologies and show people and demonstrate how they can be used. So we're all in, and it will build the trust. If we're transparent from the get-go, we know the industry wants to be transparent, but it's pretty opaque at the moment. It's not fully transparent down the chain. But we need legislation as well. So we need some government support to be able to help things like the extended producer responsibility come into play. So brands and retailers are expected to adopt this technology. As soon as it's legislation, it will happen. Yeah.
And you've both mentioned the compliance issue and development, and I can't quite see him, but Rob's in the room. He's going to be talking about, there he is, yeah, blocked from view. So Rob's going to be talking about that this afternoon, and the great work you blocked are doing in that sphere. So yeah, so compliance stuff, competitive edge. Great. So I'm getting the nod. So I think we'll draw that to a close. So thank you very much to the panel. Let's give them a big hand. And I'm sure you can grab all of them, through the course of the lunch break and explore further. So yeah, great stuff. Thank you all.
Okay, welcome back from lunch, everyone, and hello to everyone joining online. I hope you're all well rested and you've taken in all the conversations and incredible presentations that have been shared in the morning. I saw lots of networking and interactions with the demos going on. I know there's many more conversations to be had, so don't worry if you still want to have more of those. We'll have time this afternoon with the networking at the end of the event. So I'm Ola, I'm an innovation partner here at Digital Catapult, and I get the pleasure to kick us off for the afternoon with 5 presentations from our innovative project teams that they'll be sharing the project work that they've completed as part of our 3rd open call on the supply chain hub. But first, a little bit of background about the open call itself. So this cohort has been designed to respond to the needs of industry SMEs and are designed to align with the testbed sectors that have been presented this morning. SMEs are absolutely crucial to the UK and global economy, and I think that's a fact that we can all absolutely agree with. However, a lot of the digital solutions that have been designed for larger corporations, providing them an unfair advantage. We've heard about this already during our panel discussion. So to ensure that supply chains are resilient and sustainable, SMEs need to get access to digital solutions which are ready for deployment and are ready to deliver value. So with that in mind, throughout this open call, we've partnered tech solution providers with manufacturing SMEs to tackle a range of key industry challenges. So our tech solution providers have been responsible to build and trial an MVP against the specific industry challenges and have been developing use cases for further deployment and adoption. So our manufacturing SMEs have provided business use cases. They've provided high quality data for the development of the solution, and most importantly, have been providing feedback throughout the process after trialing the MVPs. So in order to develop and deploy these solutions, our tech solution providers have received 100K worth of funding, and our manufacturing SMEs have received 25K to bolster this activity within their businesses. Between last summer through to this March, both parties have gone through solution development and business case scoping. They've then moved on to testing and business case development, and more recently have begun exploring deployment and scaling approaches and activities. That is to say that the Digital Catapult team has been there throughout the whole process to facilitate and manage the different milestones that they've been completing, making sure through bi-weekly check-ins all is on track. And we've been working with them to provide spaces such as this showcase for industry networking. So the challenges that have been addressed by the tech solution providers and the manufacturing SMEs cover four different areas. The first challenge targets enabling compliance through digital, and more specifically, looking at how to improve compliance to reduce administrative burden for SMEs to comply with regulation. Our second challenge tackles sustainability and reduction of waste, and that's through solutions for diverting waste from landfills to secondary markets. Our third challenge looks at visibility of supply chains, so specifically looking at the visibility of parts and materials in transit. And finally, our final challenge is looking at addressing input costs and sourcing, so looking at procurement efficiency and sourcing costs. Here you can see an overview of the incredible participants that have been working across these four challenges. I won't go into detail about each of them because they'll be presenting in just a few moments, so they'll be able to share a bit more about themselves then. But just to give a really brief overview, for compliance, we had two projects, the first comprising of Aggregate One as our tech solution provider and Mako Food Company as our manufacturing SME. Our second compliance project consisted of Ubloquity as a tech solution provider and McColgan's bringing the manufacturing experience. For sustainability, we've had Reverse Resources bringing the tech solution and Londre and Inuyo providing the SME use cases. For visibility, Kavita are the tech solution provider with Dyer and MBT as the industry SMEs. And finally, FlowLens is the technology solution provider for the sourcing challenge and has been joined by Denchi and Lumen to provide industry use cases. So before heading into the first presentation, as a reminder, we'll hear 10 minutes each from each project, and then we'll have time for 1 to 2 questions afterwards. So keep those in mind after the presentations are done. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Aggregate One and Mako.
Good afternoon, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to present Open Call 3.1, which focuses on compliance in the FMCG industries. For the purpose of this presentation, I'll start by giving a brief introduction to the parties involved in the project. This will be followed by an overview of the compliance challenges that needed to be solved. After unpacking goals and deliverables, I'll demonstrate the solution, as well as additional value-adding features that were created. We have a brief testimonial from the manufacturing SME, and we'll close by looking at practical next steps. Aggregate One is the technology partner on this project. Our roots lie in solving challenges for a different type of SME. The journey started in 2018 with the objective of bringing farmers closer to the market they serve and correcting the imbalance in risk and reward sharing between parties in the fresh produce value chain. By digitizing the supply chain from the farm outwards, Aggregate One empowers farmers to take a more active role in the value chain through improved visibility and digital collaboration with their trade and supply chain partners. Mako is the SME manufacturer that we were partnered with. They are a food FMCG manufacturer who are based in Northern Ireland, and they're a leader in innovative private label snack manufacturing. Mako exports to various regions across the globe, and each destination country has its own requirements for importation of their products. The challenge presented to us was to solve issues relating to supply chain compliance. In particular, export compliance requirements place a significant burden on SME manufacturers. Supply chain interruptions and adherence to regulatory and statutory standards rank amongst the top challenges confronting the FMCG sector. The stringent documentation prerequisites for exporting goods make the process rigorous and time-consuming. Consequently, there is a need to embrace technologies that can expedite and enhance the efficiency of both the movement of goods and the associated documentation processes. For Mackle, the particular challenge centers around the process of creating export documentation for clearance through UK ports. Traditionally, their documentation is generated and shared via email and Excel, making the data control process manual, inefficient, and unreliable. In order to solve these challenges, there were two distinct goals which needed to be achieved via 3 deliverables. Goal 1 is to reduce the administrative time spent on the creation of export documents. In order to do this, Aggregate One had to apply an extract, transform, and load process to ingest stock and order data from Mackle's existing ERP system. Subsequently, the data was used to generate required export document sets without users having to recapture any stock or pricing information. The documents in scope for this were commercial invoices and packing lists. Goal 2 was to automate customs clearance through HMRC. This was to be achieved by using the commercial invoice and shipping data to push pre-packaged datasets to Root, which is a digital customs clearance platform. The flow of these task deliverables from ETL to documentation creation and clearance through customs will now be demonstrated in a video which was created by our project lead, Ashley Slater. I was promised this was going to play.
To start off with the demonstration of this product, it is important to understand the onboarding process, which entails uploading the manufacturer's products per client and the pricing of each product, editable at any point in time. From this point, we then extract, transform, and load each shipment into the Aggregate One platform from the client's ERP system. Each pallet is uniquely identified with all required fields. Pricing is associated with each pallet through an automated reconciliation process completing the dataset. This pallet data is then used to start generating the commercial invoices. Our commercial invoice requires some additional manual input for shipment-specific information. The commercial invoice feature allows for additional fields to be created, in this case, the seal number and dispatch date. However, one can add any additional field that is required. The contacts are added for all parties relevant to the invoice. These are completely configurable per commercial invoice generated. After the information is filled in, the user must associate all pallets in the container to the commercial invoice. Information here is also editable. Once this page is saved, you can fill in the currency and Incoterm and save the commercial invoice. The documents then generate and you can download the commercial invoice in a completely configurable PDF and Excel format. And with no further input, one can then generate the packing list. Aggregate One's BI reporting features consolidate all datasets related to products, orders, and supply chain data. An additional use would be to generate custom datasets for consumption by supply chain stakeholders such as Rune. This specific report consolidates data which will be downloaded in a JSON schema format to transmit to Rune. Rune will use this dataset to digitally clear shipments through customs from the main UK ports.
As you saw in the video, Aggregate One's core product includes some additional value-adding feature sets which fall outside of the scope of the project. Amongst these are Receiver View, which allow each of Mackle's clients to track the containers in transit to them via a dashboard. This is not a Project 44 third-party plugin, but our own in-house developed tracking solution. The task of mapping datasets and integrating with Mackle's ERP, we were able to identify non-standard and outvalued data or outdated data sets. This has resulted in an overall improvement in their master data completeness and accuracy. A number of standard BI reports are available in Aggregate One. These include product and volume-related reports, but additionally, the presence of supply chain data allows for a more holistic analysis of the client's business as well as their risk exposure. The work undertaken here is reflected in the testimonial by our client, where Colin has highlighted the reduction in the administrative burden and improvements in data quality that the solution delivered within the export shipment process. So where to from here? The Mackle relationship is very important to Aggregate One. Through this project, Mackle has provided valuable insights into the FMCG sector and its specific challenges and compliance requirements. Many of these topics need to be further unpacked in order for Aggregate One to deliver a comprehensive and scalable product that fully meets the needs of FMCG manufacturers, and in particular, SMEs. Ideally, this would be done with the input of additional FMCG manufacturers to ensure a proper product market fit. The product must be configurable enough to account for variations in individual client processes, but not too customized around a single client, which would result in the product being too specific and unscalable. There are a number of areas that we've already identified in which the product can evolve and be improved. One example is the inclusion of tooling, which will allow users to design and build their own document templates, which is needed to meet the specific requirements of each destination market. Finally, our relationship with Rune is expanding further, and we are now trialing the import and export of clearances beyond the FMCG sector. In conclusion, our work with the Digital Catapult and Mackle teams as part of the DSCH has allowed us to explore compliance challenges within the FMCG supply chains. The outcome is a solution which facilitates interoperability between legacy ERPs and modern platform solutions in the supply chain by digitizing key workflow gaps. Thank you.
Time for a Q&A. Stay where you are.
Excellent stuff. Very well done on getting as far as you have. And I really like the way that it's focused on the requirements of a small to medium enterprise here. I was just wondering, you mentioned specifically the commercial invoice and the packing list. There's about 40 different documents involved in an international trade. How many of those do you think you could eventually meet the requirements for?
Yeah, it's very modular. And as I said, we started in the fresh produce space, and there's a whole bunch of other documents that go with it. We allow for, or our system has the solutions to store all types of certificates, Caesar, Global Gap, all of these sort of things. And I think for this project or the MVP, we kept it very specific in terms of those documents. However, we do have the ability to generate through templating various document sets once the standards are understood and known.
Brilliant. And have you engaged with the sort of regulatory authorities in both South Africa and in the UK?
Yeah, I mean, from a South Africa perspective, we are very integrated with the phytosanitary issuing bodies, the PPCB, which is the Perishable Controls Board. From a UK perspective, we're working with British Telecoms and their Rune and AZARC partners in terms of customs clearance. So yes, there's more work that we need to do specifically in the FMCG space to get into the additional requirements. But we've, in the past, been able to quite quickly accommodate those requirements through our framework. Thanks.
Thank you. Got time for one more question.
Do you see yourself spinning out that capability? Because, you know, we would have customers who have all sorts of diverse commercial invoice and packing requirements, and we don't really want to be experts in that. You know, but we work in device and equipment manufacturing. Do you see yourself having a, you know, basically a spin-off product that could be more universal?
Yes, so I think that our core will always be in the food and agricultural space. It's a space we understand. I think if you try to become everything to everyone, you dilute and you lose that capability. However, there are elements of our product that we do believe could be packaged as standalone modules and spun off into other industries where it makes sense.
Okay, thank you so much, Dave. On to our next presentation from Rob on uBlock Hoodie and McColgans.
Right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Rob Chester. I'm the CEO of uBlock Hoodie. So thank you to the people that have given us a few name checks today, because that's always very pleasant. I am CEO of uBlock Hoodie today, but for 25 years, I was compliance officers for people like Tesco and Walmart around the world. But I had a big problem. because essentially I had lagging indicators and lagging information that was trying to help me manage risks. So I'd got, like, if you imagine a rear view mirror, and I was dreaming of a windscreen, really. I was dreaming of being able to know what was coming at me instead of just being able to tell you what had gone wrong in the past. And this project I'm just going to talk you through was part of that dream I now have of moving from lagging indicators to leading indicators. Because back to one of the questions this morning about where's this developing, where's the world heading, that is it when it comes to compliance. It's increasingly going to move to leading indicators of what's going wrong, as opposed to people who can just tell you what's gone wrong last week, which is obviously important, but limited value. So we've developed a platform called Pave that we've used for this product, but we've used it across everything from guitars to shipping containers and different things in the food chain. The objective of the project here was to try and revolutionize the way that data is stored on the platform and then how we use it. So our goal was to establish a really secure chain of custody for this data that demonstrated the compliance standard to auditing standards. And the mission was to create what I call earned trust. So when I was doing this for retailers, I had to essentially treat all of my suppliers the same, which is a bit nuts, really, because you've clearly got some very well educated, well-established suppliers that you should arguably be treating very, very differently to inexperienced suppliers. And one of my dreams was, if my supplier is going to be more transparent and more honest with me and give me more data and more information, then what I should do to monitor them should reduce. It makes sense, doesn't it, in theory? But unfortunately, for most of the compliance tools today, that's not an option. It's one size fits all, and that's all you do. So how do we go about doing it? Well, thank you, Digital Catapult. You've been a great catalyst for this. So yes, you provided the funding, which was superb. But what we did was work with William at McColgan's, who's been up here earlier, work with their team, including their laboratory. So one of the things that these auditors all do, audits being the leading lagging indicator of problems and solutions, when they turn up at things like food factories, they'll say, can you show me your lab results for the last year or so? So every manufacturer like William will be testing their products on a frequent basis. We send it off to a lab, the lab will give you the results, et cetera, et cetera. Then the auditor turns up several times a year and says, can you show me a sample of these results? And we'll look through it for 30 minutes. So not a very good way of monitoring the lab results, but the way that auditing enables you to do that. And the idea of this project was basically to cut out the middleman. That if ultimately you had the lab results from the laboratory, and then the manufacturer could then share those through the technology in a really efficient way with multiple parties, you've got real benefits there to both the manufacturer, potentially to the laboratory, and potentially even to the retailer who's on the end of the results that you get. I'm not a techie. I've got a wonderful techie team working for me. I'm not a techie, but I wasn't brave enough to put in a video today, but I put in a few screenshots of the actual system that we developed. And I'll come on to a slide that's got on the moment that explains what it is. That's young Ellen, who led the project team, absolutely fantastic colleague, who basically describes there the traditional tools that most food businesses use are quite slow, they're quite cumbersome, and they're prone to human error. So when we actually got stuck into this project with the laboratory, the first answer we got is, well, obviously we provide, the samples go off to the lab then give the results back to William. And the quote from the lab was, we do it in a PDF because you can't change a PDF. Hopefully there's a few techies in the room that are, hang on, that's a bit of a flaw. Of course you can, heard of a PDF writer? So once we got stuck into the process, what that identified was a few flaws and a few weaknesses and a few things that could have been improved. But what it also identified was that William's team was spending an awful lot of time manually completing spreadsheets to produce these results in a way that all of the auditors and the retailers wanted. And basically, we were able to use the technology to auto-populate all of that and cut out all of the admin from actually having to do it. I'm beginning to think most of our techies look like Scott. So he's the techie who worked on it. And what he basically did was use the distributed ledger platform to do this. We do principally work on blockchain, but we're not exclusively. And I do spend an awful lot of my time telling customers, you don't need us. That's not a blockchain problem. So we're very much someone that's trusted to say to people, if this isn't the right technology, we'll send you to someone who can fix your problem. But for this solution, we really liked the way that blockchain could potentially work. And Scott describes there, it digitized the secure data journey from the laboratory to the final results to enable you basically to trust the results through the technology. What did we achieve? Good efficiency, basically. So some of the things I've talked about there of cutting out the manual processes from the system, enabling you to do that is obviously very helpful. Transparency. If you want to be more trusted, obviously transparency comes with that. The more transparent you are, in general, the more you are trusted. And therefore, the more that you're giving people access to information and access to data, the more you will be trusted. And obviously, as with every tech project, if you can't show a cost effectiveness, if you can't show a return on investment, then best of luck with that. It's not going to go anywhere. You've got to be able to show efficiency through the process. That sort of summed it up quite well. I think that was Ellie's quote as to how we would sum up what this project actually did. It transformed static manual processes into dynamic digital ones, reducing the human intervention, enhancing the data reliability, and therefore it's providing more real-time immutable data across various stakeholders that could potentially revolutionize the compliance industry. Because although we did this around lab results, as you imagine, every single one of those audits essentially is looking at the lagging indicators. And if you can find a way of seamlessly getting that information to the right people, you've potentially got a really big idea that could transform the industry. So the real world application, the future scope, the success was practical. It did work, and the system to automatically create the reports rather than having to use the PDFs, etc., all worked and was good. And looking to the future, we can see that that is the potential for the beginning. The next stage clearly would be to do it with linking that up to the retailer, who's the person at the end of the day that's asking for this information. And that's where my background can hopefully be a little bit helpful. But also, this really applies to all compliance problems and compliance challenges that are out there. So if I leave you with one thought today to remember me, if you've got a compliance issue, and most of you do, that there are other tools available other than the traditional tools that everybody reaches for. And as they become more prevalent, the old tools are going to look a bit archaic. So I think that there is perfectly good potential for technology to replace an awful lot of the traditional risk management tools that are out there. That's me. Questions?
Blockchain is one way to ensure that your data is not overwritten. But even in a regular database, there's always a history where who changed it, when it was changed, and so on.
There can be.
Yeah, can be. Why?
Depending who's in charge and how it operates, but there can be.
Why isn't that enough when it's a supply chain as opposed to a public network?
Yeah, my honest answer was that 10 years ago in China, I could see the potential for how blockchain could work. And it was the immutability that really got me excited, because it was the ability to know that if changes have happened, you will see them. And so for that elimination of the trust deficit and the trust challenge between people like manufacturers and retailers, which there will always be, it was my best bet for how that industry could be transformed and how that trust could be developed. I happen to not think that the technology will replace everything, which is why I actually do two businesses, because I actually do believe there is still a place for human beings, there's still a place for the intervention. But blockchain for me was likely to be the most trusted tool until something better came along that could replace it, because I had seen the downside of the databases that everybody could trust. So it was my bet, but I ultimately accept it is a technology and it could be replaced if something better comes along. Good question, though. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Sorry,
Of course you can.
Have you engaged with FSA, DEFRA, and PHA on this? Do you see a time when they would have a node on your blockchain and actually see this stuff in real time and not require a separate declaration or report?
100%. Because the reality is, back to the link to the retailer to manufacturer, the other people that have got a duty to monitor the food chain are the regulators. Now, for me, the thing that used to frustrate me the most was for my suppliers that were doing everything. William does everything that's needed to keep people safe. All the auditor really is doing is turning up to check it's being done. But the first line of defense was always being completed by my suppliers. Now, I wasn't naive to think that everybody will always get things right. Of course, there's a place for audits from time to time. Of course there is. But William, how many audits did you get last year? 2 last week. It sort of sums it up. It's like if your only toolbox, your only thing's a hammer, every problem's a nail. And the industry has basically developed using audits as the way that you do that. But the reason the retailers would use it through this tool is exactly the same as enforcement. And if on enforcement, manufacturers and retailers were sharing that data and information, the reality is they should be more trusted than the ones that do not. And therefore it moves towards an earned trust model of if you are prepared to share your data and information with regulators, why would you be treated the same as someone who does not?
Yeah, I absolutely get that. And that's really, for me, that's the difference between other systems. It actually meets the public and the private commercial requirements. But if William is saving 30% on cost, that's a massive advantage in a low margin industry.
Thank you for
Why isn't
validating my
everybody doing
business
it?
model.
Why aren't they falling over themselves? Why isn't Greg's on your back?
I think the reality is for compliance, it's often in terms of a retail and supply chain, it's actually quite a small cost overall. If you're to look at everything, the compliance bit, the compliance team, the compliance organization, it's often hidden. And it's only when a real light gets shined on it, which if you were to do, and this is next stage really for William and I, which is if you shine a light on this to a retailer of actually, because the thing that excited me most about this is it is better, right? This is not taking a backward step on compliance. This is instead of someone coming in and monitoring something for 30 minutes and having a quick look through some lab results, you're providing real-time data to people so they can see it there and then. It's a forward step on compliance, as well as being a lot more blooming efficient than the way that it's done at the moment. Thank you. Good question.
Wonderful. On to our next project on sustainability with Reverse Resources, Laundry, and Ineo.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here. My name is Anne Rannell. I'm the founder and CEO of Reverse Resources, and I'm super excited about this project. Reverse Resources, we are a software platform that is connecting textile waste with recycling, and we have been doing that project with large fashion corporates with their production waste in countries like Bangladesh and India, with large fashion waste going to recycling. And this project gave us a chance to look at this same story, but on a SME level here in Europe, where for us, it would have been very difficult to kind of verify a business case, because in our what we do, we need to look at large volumes first to actually quantify or create the business case. So we were partnered up with Laundry and Ineo as SMEs here in UK to look into how we can apply the approach we've developed to actually help them with their cases. I don't know if the video is playing, but I was thinking of showing you quickly what the, which one? Did it play? Oh my God. Turn the volume down, please. I'm just myself very fascinated about what Laundry is doing, so I wanted to show you a quick video of how they are giving a new life to products that that have been discarded as waste. In our project, we kind of scan through what their challenge is, but because Laundry is very much in a pilot phase, we couldn't kind of proceed to actually offer a better solution at the moment, but we managed to understand how can we build that their needs into our roadmap so that we can actually also support them in the future once they start scaling up their solution. And Sally here can tell you more about their project. So we went deeper into the business case of InnoEO as a recycler to look into, because we have been working more with industrial waste first, and there was a bigger match of what their challenges are and where we are right now to actually help them. And InnoEO is a mechanical recycler. I'll let him give you a bit of an introduction himself. Let's see if it doesn't work. Yes. Now we have to turn the volume up again. Wait. Let's try this again.
My name is John Parkinson and I'm the Managing Director of InnoEO. And we're Yorkshire-based mechanical textile recyclers that convert textile waste back into fibre, yarns and fabrics. Although some people might consider the waste material that we encounter as problematic to control or hazardous, I'd argue that it's no more so, really, than new fibre. For example, new wool is exposed to contamination from factors such as toxic atmospheres being rained down and fertilisers or herbicides being applied directly or runoff from adjoining fields and surrounding areas. Knowing the name of the sheep or the square metre of ground only tells us where the fibre comes from and not all the story in terms of being free from contaminants or the animal and human welfare of their production, whatever we perceive those factors to be. The byproducts from textile production and discarded textiles by consumers are made from those very virgin fibres, and whilst any impact of their creation is likely to be minimised by the time we receive it as recyclers, there's no certainty to know what those products have encountered along the way. It's because of such uncertainties that there needs to be a more rigorous approach to our responsibilities with textile manufacturing, of which knowing is probably more of a tool for doing better. The slides that follow tell the story of this pilot case study, and whilst there's more work to be done, through it we have learned that a detailed examination of our supply chain and the technological apparatus and skills that support this is almost certain to improve the stewardship and quality of the materials we supply to our customers and consumers. But the journey is likely to be one of continual improvement rather than achieving a perfect solution for all time. How far and effectively we go along that road is probably reliant on pragmatic collaboration amongst multiple partners such as regulators, research and development funding bodies, fibre suppliers, textile manufacturers, designers, alongside suppliers to end consumers. It's encouraging that many of those partners are gathered for this event today. So thank you for listening.
There's another short clip where he explained what the actual challenge was and what we were working on. So I'm going to play that one too.
We had a number of modern day problems to be resolved, given my long history and heritage in our industry, which for almost all my life has functioned using paper-based methods of control and documentation. We needed to digitise our process to be more efficient, effective, transparent and traceable. The task seemed too much to tackle without some help, which is why the funding from Digital Catapult and the expertise from Reverse Resources was so timely. We selected just one supplier to work with as a pilot case study, with the expectation of being able to roll out any success with more suppliers in due course. In this case, we were able to digitise the supply process with details of the stock being held by our supplier available to view on the Reverse Resources platform, and with the added possibility of images representing each lot, possibly to follow. These changes have involved reverse resources making adjustments to their software, and more will be needed to add the images, but progress is being made. We want to take this one step further, though, by creating a chain of custody system so robust that it could be used as an alternative to global recycling standards or GRS or other similar certifications. If this was possible, it could be a massive enabler to the market for SMEs and small-scale startup entrepreneurs that are otherwise not ready to meet the costs of third-party certification and therefore are denied access to many markets. Further funding is likely to be needed to guarantee continued improvement, but the potential of this initiative could allow us, and perhaps others, to recycle more materials, which will all benefit. Thank you for listening.
Got a bit long maybe, but short story, InnoEO had very, very specific issues which we managed to identify where our platform can actually bring down cost for them and create efficiency. So we identified 3 options where we can actually improve the functionality. We ended up doing one change already on the system and building a roadmap from what we're gonna do next. Yeah, it's like, first of all, it's about efficiency of exchanging documentation between the stakeholders in the supply chain, standardizing processes, but also there's like both upfront planning of what InnoEO is getting as waste and agreeing is that the waste that actually matches our requirements, and then later on also verifying to the customer what was actually used and have proper documentation for that, and do that in a very quick process so that it doesn't add time and cost into the daily work. And yeah, the verification, today, the only verification is GRS and RCS certificates, which are, the auditing is expensive. We have actually already built a system. We had built part of the system that was enables to make the same verification process much cheaper and much more accurate. But we're able to kind of add pieces to it that makes it applicable to InnoEO to use it as an alternative to GRS and RCS, and strengthen their product to the market. So it's like very quick demo of the actual functionality that we built, but there is a bigger system behind it where what are the steps between the stakeholders to like on one side what is needs to upload, what on the other side they are able to see and how it responds. So it's kind of interesting in this project. There's so much more discussions and debates, and eventually the functionality of the building may seem like a small thing, but actually creating a big impact. The bigger impact that we see from here, like in addition to these 2 case studies we analyzed, we did a lot of more research and interviews of like, what is the potential for us to offer our solution to UK and European markets. We built our database further, had many interviews, identified 74 textile recyclers in Europe that we could actually offer this as a solution. 4 functionalities conceptualized, 1 developed for now. InnoEO was saying that this small change actually helps them to decrease 50% of the time they spend on searching for the right materials that they want to buy, and strengthening their product offering to the market. And yeah, from here on, we have a lot to do to actually continue building this system to make it even better usable. But we do see that it is giving us a very good opportunity to have a new offering to the market. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anne. Are there any questions in the room?
So is this going to be in the future a platform where any, let's say, any apparel retailer could join and find out where they could recycle or where they could, or some manufacturer, apparel manufacturer could figure out where they could source recycled material? Is that some kind of platform then?
Yeah, the platform is actually already up and running. It's just that we have been kind of offering that mainly to Bangladesh and India. Today, we already have 1,000 tons of waste that is getting registered on the platform, where we have like hundreds of factories registering how much waste they are generating so that recyclers can see what's there and source that. And we are optimizing the supply chain to make sure that if there is a middleman to help pick it up and aggregate and deliver, that the whole process is kind of properly standardized and documented and transparent. And that fashion corporates like H&M or Marks and Spencer, like we have 18 of largest fashion brands, they can actually monitor how much production waste is generated and connect that with their recycling partners so that they can buy back recycled yarns and fabrics again. So we already have a system set up, it's running. It's just that we have been needing to do that for large industry first and in large production countries. So that's why for us it was super interesting to see how we can actually strengthen the small SMEs in Europe and the recycling network here.
Wonderful, thank you. Time for more questions.
Yes, yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. I was just wondering, as you're uploading those documents, have you looked at how you authenticate those documents or validate that they are real documents, as we had with the previous presentation, a PDF? There is editable, it can be edited. It could be deep faked, maybe with this modern AI. Is there a route? Is that something that you're looking to examine in the future, or is that already in the tool?
Well, it's kind of interesting that we have been doing this whole chain of custody thing without even needing the documentation so far, because this chain of custody actually works really good where when you need to prove something at the end of the chain, you need to make sure that the right data is entered down the line. So, and also because we have a component of this transaction management, like if I have to pay for the waste and I'm getting wrong waste, then I shouldn't pay that much. So like how to actually get the data on the platform, it's like the data is kind of an outcome later on. So we don't really need to verify documents. We need to verify that what happened was true, right? And it's actually already happening. And the documentation there is kind of, it feels sometimes like just to calm everybody down that everything is well managed.
Fantastic, thank you. Yeah, I guess that chain, like you say, yeah. Well, even if you edit part of the chain, because you've got such a long chain,
yeah,
the error is easily spotted. You'd have to modify the entire chain, which
imagine
is too hard.
Imagine Airbnb like trying to do a lot of documentation. Like you don't want to do that, right?
Well, cheers, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Great, thanks so much. I think we have time for maybe one more question.
Excellent presentation once again, and I'm interested in your taking into account the work that the UN has been doing on textiles and whether you've standardized with them, and whether you've thought about if you're dealing with the sort of circular bit of the supply chain, there are others who are doing the financial and the other shipping documents, the bills of lading, the warehouse receipts. It seems to me if we put those together and you got your platform interacting with those others, then you could really, that would be your route perhaps to scalability and commercialization.
Well, actually, that's what we were doing. That
Great.
We were integrating all those shipment documents and bills of lading and everything into this platform. But yeah, I lost my.
Okay, don't worry. I'll have our word with you afterwards.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, and thank you so much. We're off to our next presentation on visibility, and Anam will be providing the slides.
All right, brilliant. Today we're hoping to present some really exciting innovation. And none of this would have been possible without the work of Rich and Dye Engineering. We've been working on this supply chain visibility problem now since the first week of COVID in 2020. And over the last 6 months, we were able to make the final tweaks for the solution to fit UK industrial manufacturers. So the problem, companies can expect to lose 42% of 1 year's operating profits every decade due to supply chain disruptions. Earlier today, we heard from the policymakers about what they're going to do about risk and resilience. I believe they're going to fail in their objectives if they don't convince the millions of companies to prioritize risk and resilience through the business case. And this is the business case. There's millions of manufacturers all across the world. In the UK, we have 250,000 and each have hundreds of suppliers. Now, trading with these suppliers has never been harder. Whether it's Russia, Ukraine, China, USA, we have a new operating environment, one that is characterized by chaos and instability. 10, 20 years ago, lean, just in time, these operating models existed because they assumed stability at the foundation. That assumption of stability no longer holds true. Now, we've heard a lot about very complicated supply chain solutions solving very complicated problems. But on a day-to-day basis, this is what supply chains look like. You have a procurement manager that has to track hundreds of purchase orders, coordinate with potentially hundreds of suppliers, record all of that information in on Excel, and in fact, they're probably spending 3 to 4 hours a day on that task. Then in the afternoons, they usually deal with issues to those orders. So in the mornings, they're chasing orders, trying to make sure that they arrive on time. In the afternoons, they deal with issues to their orders. The way that procurement interacts and collaborates with suppliers isn't fit for 2024. And this is one of our favorite slides, because me as a consumer, on the left-hand side is the level of visibility I have when I place a $20 order on Amazon. I can track it end to end. On the right-hand side is the level of visibility most procurement managers have when they're placing $20 million worth of orders. They have a big spreadsheet. Now, it doesn't matter if we're in the UK, we're in India, we're in Sri Lanka. This applies across the board to all SMEs and mid-market manufacturers. Now, up until a couple of years ago, this category of software to solve this problem didn't exist, and it didn't need to exist. In procurement, you have tools like Procure to Pay. They manage all your pre-order stuff. Then you have your ERP systems, which are great for managing your internal operations. And this is where we fit in. We look after the orders from the moment that they're raised to the moment that they arrive. And it's a category of software that has emerged as a result of the instability in the macro environment. So now I'm going to pass it on to Sumit, who is going to talk about the solution that they've built, and then we're going to pass it on to Rich.
Thanks, Anam. So now what Anam described was that there's been a complete lack of solutions that manage your orders since you place them until you receive them. That's where the lack of visibility lies. And that's where we come in. So what we are is basically an AI assistant to stay on top of every order. We help you do 3 key things, which is manage high priority tasks, give you instant visibility for every order, and proactively address risks. Now, how this works is that behind the AI assistant, there is our order management platform, which is a bridge between your ERP systems and everything that's external, be it your suppliers, be it risks. It automates everything in the backend, and what sits on top of it is a large language model. So the goal of the large language model is to make sure that you interact with it using natural language. You ask basic questions like, what do I need to do today? What are the risks to my orders? What's coming in today? So what I'll do now is just hopefully play the video to give you a small understanding.
Hello. This demo is going to walk you through how the Kavita platform provides supply chain visibility. Hello. This demo is going to walk you through how the Kavita platform provides supply chain visibility. So, the Kavita ecosystem is powered by the order management platform that links with ERP systems and collaborates with suppliers to give you supply chain visibility across orders, risks, and logistics. But the way users interact with it is using an AI assistant that sits on top of the platform. So how the users would use it is they would come in and they would ask a question like, what do I need to do today? Now, what this does is that this question answers the key tasks that procurement managers and supply chain managers have to do. It just includes, let's say, delivery dates that have been proposed by the supplier, any documents that have been uploaded, any orders that require follow-up. Now, this is happening because in the backend, the Kavita platform is managing all the orders once they have been raised on the ERP system. And the way it does that is it digitizes the flow between the procurement manager and the supplier. So the buyer and supplier workflow is completely digitized. And then it uses automation to request all of the things from the supplier to give you visibility. Starts with order confirmation, where as soon as the order is raised, it asks the supplier for confirmation. Moves on to various documents that may be required, any changes, any revisions to the order. And this end-to-end flow ensures that you get complete visibility of where your order is. On the supplier side, the supplier collaborates using an email that he gets from the platform. And from the email, they can access the supplier portal, which again gives them visibility on all the orders that they have active. And they can use this platform to collaborate directly with the buyer and propose any new changes that can be approved by the buyer. The second big thing that the platform does is give visibility on all the risks that can impact the order. When we talk about risks, we talk about any delays to orders coming in. Now, these can happen because of issues such as workflow issues, such as unconfirmed orders, maybe missing documents. It can also happen because of external risks that are happening within the supplier location or within the ports that are used by the supplier. How the platform does is the platform has a mechanism to find what are the key alerts that can delay your order. So it may start with simple workflow issues like missing documents, unclear Incoterms, but then it also looks at key issues, key events, incidents, protests, or macro issues that are happening at the supplier location that may impact the order. For example, here is a supplier that is being impacted by a factory fire. So this would be given as an alert for you that this order can be delayed because there's a factory fire at the supplier. Other things can be things, let's say, happening at the Red Sea issue, which a supplier may be using for logistics. So what the platform is essentially doing, it's combining a lot of information regarding port congestion, regarding real-time events, more than 1.5 million news articles collected per hour, and more than 2 million tweets, and then all analyzed to give you exactly those issues that can delay your order in some way. The third thing the supplier does is give you visibility on the logistics. So your orders may be coming in through shipments, it may be coming in through couriers. Does not matter which provider you're using, which shipment mode, which container. The platform links with external data sources across satellite imaging, as well as information from couriers to give you this visibility. So if you look at it, what it does is that based on the container ID that you're using, it is able to obtain real-time data on where the shipment is.
Sure. So I'll just introduce myself. So Richard Lauder, Business Improvement Director for Dyer Engineering. Who's Dyer Engineering? Well, we specialize in manufacturing machine metal fabrications in the Northeast. Turnover of 17 million and employ about 180 people, just to sort of frame things a bit. So in the main, most of what we buy, won't surprise you, is steel. And there's not really much risk associated with it, less sort of wars in Europe and what have you. But in the main, that's fine. Where there is a problem is right at the end of our process and our painting and assembly. So we quite recently had a job that was 472 grand, and we couldn't ship it because we were just missing some specialized paint, and that paint took 3 months to arrive. So that cash flow impact of not being able to hit sale, not having OTIP, is massively significant. What this platform offers is exception reporting. I just had a look at our last board report, and we had 2,700 purchase lines last month, and trying to track which ones are running on time, which ones aren't through a manual process first of all, is a rubbish job. You know, anyone expediting and doing things that's not using your brain, it's not a great use of your time. So let's automate that and then allow those people to start to use their brains and really sort of start to solve the problems. Second one's documentation. Some of the things that we produce are highly complex, and you know, if they don't have the right welder qualifications and the material certs and what have you, and there's an insurance claim, then we've got to have the full traceability. So managing associated documentation, again, really important part, but also very timely and not very interesting. But the third bit that I've just been blown away with is the AI cobot, co-pilot, sorry. So me, I'm a data guy, and I love getting behind the back end of systems and getting into SQL and extracting things, and that's great. Most users use the graphical user interface of an ERP system. That's fine. That takes a bit of training, and you reduce the number of people that can actually penetrate the system. So what do? You just have a queue of people queued up to go and query what those handful of people do. Okay, by allowing AI access to that entire data set, you're now opening up natural language to for us, it's our team leaders on the shop floor to go, and they can ask questions loosely, you know, when is a 60 mil S275 bar due in? And it'll scan and go, oh, Kelvin Steel are dropping that next Thursday, and they're booked in a 2 p.m. slot, and here's a purchase order reference, and here's the job. So, you know, going from a table structure to a graphical user interface to a natural language is, for me, the next evolution, and everything else is just automation. So yeah, really impressed by what these guys have been able to achieve.
Yeah, I think we had a great time working with Dyer. Just to summarize what Rich said. So the first piece is operational efficiency, which is visibility right now is created through manual emails and workflows. Kavita automates all of that. So you free up your time for procurement managers, you free up your time for different different departments within that, and you get complete automation. Second thing, lack of visibility impacts you because you come to know about disruptions very late, your production's impacted. How Kavita helps is that it gives you that visibility to ensure that the additional cost that you're incurring because of disruptions are eliminated. All of that accumulates into customer service because at the end, it's delivering to the customer on time. If not, at least warning them proactively enough so that you can work together to resolve that. That's where we come in, ensuring that you give that early visibility, that early warning to your customer, and you get complete visibility of the orders. Yeah.
And Rich.
Hi, again, great presentation. Something that you shared with regards to your large language models, right? So is that something that's proprietary to you, or are you using, you know, LangChains or OpenAI system? And in which case, what's the security of the data that, you know, you're putting? Because supply chain is proprietary, the data is proprietary to a company. How are you managing that security element?
Yeah, I think so. The key aspect of using any of the open source models is to ensure that the instance that you're using with is under a business contract that's only for your and your cloud. So what we do is that for clients that actually host this, actually use the solution, there's a virtual private cloud with a specific instance of the LLM that's only running on their data. And it's not a general LLM that has access to all of internet. It's very limited data that is actually on our platform. So from once the orders that come in to the ERP system till the time they go out, only that part has access to us.
It's not a wrapper on OpenAI, it's your own LLM.
It's our own LLM, but yes, it does use OpenAI in the back.
All right, thank you. Any more questions?
Can I ask Richard, what's different about Dyer Engineering? Why did you go with these guys?
Why have I been involved in the project, or?
Well, what makes Dyer Engineering an adopter or pioneer of this new technology, and why aren't your competitors doing it?
Sure. Good question. So prior to being promoted to the board, my previous role was head of digital innovation. Trying to think, probably 3-4 years ago, when Industry 4 terminology was first coming about, I actually engaged with the Digital Catapult, and we implemented a real-time location tracking solution because, well, we just kept on losing things. Yeah, I've got 11 different buildings, 100,000 square feet, and the repeat stuff was fine. So since sort of realizing that and getting my head into what does Industry 4 mean, and for me, it's mainly data and automation. Operation process automation, which is what this falls into. You've got production process automation, which is your cobots and your coal-face stuff on the shop floor. You've then got self-servicing business architecture, so use of SharePoint, knowledge bases, distributed knowledge through natural language, and then connectivity, so utilization of Teams and what have you, which we got in just before COVID. And what's that meant? Well, we've recognized that massively, especially, and mining big data. And we've gone from losing 1.5 million a year to make 1.5 million a year. And that's largely been proportioned to slimming down our overhead, automating activities, and really leveraging our data from our ERP system. And then, yeah, I sort of found out about this open call and got engaged with these guys. And as I say, it's just another sort of string to our bow around realizing the impact that these emerging technologies can have, because they will become commonplace. So at the moment, you can get a commercial advantage, but soon it's going to be the cost just to enter the party.
Can I just touch on something? So we've worked with a lot of manufacturers. Yeah, sure. Sorry. Yeah, so we've worked with a lot of manufacturers, and there is a massive difference between the mindset of the early adopters and everybody else. The early adopters have the patience. They can see things for what they can become, not what they are now. They know it's an iterative process. And it's the early adopters that get all the benefits, because as Rich said, by the time the mass market adopts this, it just becomes a cost of business. Eventually, it just becomes a cost of business. So Rich gets a head start in comparison to all of his competition because he's an early adopter. And that's about, maybe 3 to 5 years worth of gain that his competitors don't get from him being an early adopter. And you look at big tech and tech categories, this is what happens. Eventually, they just become a cost of business. Okay, yeah, okay. This is key. This is key. I've thought long and hard about this. Everyone that is thinking about tech should be asking themselves 2 questions. How cheap can I test this, and how fast can I test this? Low cost and high speed. Whatever you look at, whatever piece of tech that looks nice and looks fancy, can you test it fast? Can you test it cheap? You do those 2 things, you'll get the data, you get the validation. But avoid anything that's going to take 12, 18 months just before you can test it. You should be testing new tech in weeks, in days, because of the pace that AI is developing right now. Have a culture of experimentation and testing.
Okay, thank you so much. That was definitely quite a mic drop moment. Okay, now on to sourcing, handing it over to Flowlens, Denchi, and Lumen.
Hi, folks. I'm Rich Dale, CEO and founder of Flowlens, and this is Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah from Denchi.
Thanks very much we're last on before the beer. Well, I think there's some announcements, but yeah, thanks to Ola, Tim, and Julian, wherever you are, for all your support through this project. So we basically we're looking at input costs and sourcing. So a wee bit of background about the company. So Flowlens has been around for about 10 years, working with small but high-tech companies with basically their digitization journey. So taking them from spreadsheets and disjointed siloed systems into one single version of the truth. Mainly worrying about, have I got the stock I need today to satisfy customer orders and not make a fool of myself, never mind get paid on time. Do you want to say a couple of words about Denchi, Sarah?
Yeah, so we're based up on the north coast of Scotland, up in Thurso, and we're the SME involved with this. We produce custom battery packs and chargers.
Okay. And our other partners, Lumen Electronics, who are a small, kind of but interesting contract manufacturer based in Northern Ireland. So they work with a lot of the heavy industry machinery producers in Northern Ireland, producing control systems and whatnot. So basically, together we were looking at how SMEs, and Sarah will talk about this in a second, the time poverty issue of how SMEs can just look beyond, you know, what I need to worry about today, and look at procurement more strategically, both from the point of view of getting the best value, but also, you know, that sort of resilience piece. So do you want to say a few more words about the situation?
Yeah, so in working with Rich, we identified problems with our RFQ procedure at the moment. So we would send out emails to our suppliers, and the method of storage with that as well was an issue. So we found that we were missing a lot of information. We'd get quotes back just in emails that we'd sent, and maybe they wouldn't have the lead times involved, so we hadn't asked for that, or maybe they just missed it in the small email we'd sent them. We were also finding we're losing a lot of potential quotes because if we'd sent the email and then send 100 more, we're going to forget to look at them. We had no formal storage of these quotes as well. So that was leading to a lot of time wasted, costs wasted, savings missed.
Thank you. And Tom from Lumen sort of had a similar dilemma, you know, small business working on fast turnarounds, relying, you know, on the trust with existing suppliers, and not necessarily having the time to go to the market and look, you know, for opportunities for savings, or just better service. So basically, as Sarah said, like, we basically identified a need that as part of our roadmap, you know, RFQs and that supplier engagement piece have been something that's been on our radar, and it was part of our kind of pitch to DC about the need for this, because as people are going on that journey, the more integrated they are with the suppliers, the better. So we saw it as a win-win, not just to sort of build an RFQ process, but also start to enhance that two-way communication and the data flow that inevitably is going to become more and more prevalent. So basically what we did, this is how you build an RFQ. The obvious bit, what do we need to buy? So you're adding parts. This pulls parts from our existing system, or you can pull them in from CAD, you know, BOMs and whatnot. You can then identify your suppliers. We also built in a little RAG indicator, because many suppliers are rated based on their performance, and that's like something that Denshi do, is examine and you know, measure performance across different parameters. But just at a glance, you know, that RAG indicator lets me see we've got a high performer and a medium performer there. So it's really introducing other thought processes into the purchasing and sourcing process without making it laborious. Here, the supplier then gets the opportunity to quote. They can upload their quote, they can acknowledge it, they can interact with us through this. We're also looking at the minute at machine learning to do the whole document extraction, so it takes even more of the labor out of it for Sarah. And here then, you know, sort of part by part, we can see the comparison and be able to make a better informed decision. And as you said, that information may not have even arrived from a supplier. You have to go back through emails. It's, you know, going to be laborious to be able to compile that, compare it and whatnot. So the ability to just bring that into an easy view was a sort of a winner. I think the other factor here, you know, the cost and lead time are obviously key factors, but introducing the rating, I don't know if I have a laser on this to burn but also the shipping method. So, you know, starting to think about the carbon impact of how we're getting goods to the factory is another thing that we just really scratched the surface with that. But again, it's about making people think and going back to the original challenge. You know, what are we trying to do here? We want to make our supply chain more resilient. We understand our carbon impact, as well as getting that best value. So, Sarah, do you want to sort of say a wee bit more about the impact piece?
Yeah, so as I said before, it's obviously saved us a lot of time we're not having to rake through emails, we're not having to find information from various sources, spreadsheets, our current system to get the information to send the quote out. It's all going to be on the system for us to grab. Also, the time saved means we'll be more likely to send out RFQs to multiple different suppliers, whereas now such a time-consuming process that maybe one or two and that's it. But now we have the ability to send out much more and be able to compare those when they come back in far easier. So it'll save us a lot.
Cool, thank you. I'm going to tempt the video demons here once more.
Hi there, Tom Hughes here from Lumen Electronics, and yeah, we had a really successful project working with FlowLens on the recent RFQ project. So really the benefits for us, well now where we had the before situation was to do an RFQ of any kind of size was such a laborious, time-consuming, non-centralized data and a real pain for everybody concerned. Literally take hours, even half a day to put an RFQ together. So therefore we didn't do them very often, only when we had to. So now that we have the FlowLens tool, it's such an easy task now. So because all the data is in the system, we're able to select a number of suppliers, send them the RFQ, centralize all the data, make the decisions in a much more seamless way. So the big benefits for us are that we're going to be able to do RFQs a lot more frequently. And when we have new projects, we can obviously do that a lot more efficiently. So we've turned a process that was really, let's say half a day into something that can take 5 or 10 minutes. And that's even just to compile the RFQ. And at the tail end, when it comes to comparing everything, we've now got easy lookup tables where we can make easy decisions with everything in one place. We don't have to mess around with spreadsheets and everything else. So it's been a great project. We're very grateful for everyone who's supported it. And yeah, let's go for more things.
So, yep, that was Tom, who's somewhere in the Rust Belt, doing some lean consulting. You should check him out on LinkedIn. He's got some pretty good content. Lumen is sort of 2 days of this week. Lean consulting is the other 3. Actually, I think ice baths and meditation is maybe his Friday afternoons. But so anyway, impact and value, as you've heard, that for SMEs, any minute saved is a minute that you can be adding more value to something else. So, and that's our bread and butter, really. That's been what we've been doing for a long time. But seeing the benefit, as Sarah said, of more regular price reviews, being able to sort of easily and confidently interact with the market, is something that is now a possibility, rather than just something that, all right, well, there's just never enough time in the day for that. The total cost picture as well is something we touched on there with the carbon and the supplier rating or risk factors, and we intend to do more about that. And I suppose a lot of today has been about that supplier visibility and supply chain visibility. So this is a nice foot in the door. And again, thank you for the opportunity to do that and explore this. It's allowed us to sort of bring that forward, which is quite exciting. And there's other partners in the room that we're talking to about access to supplier networks and databases and whatnot. So Sarah doesn't have to go looking for options, that we can bring those in and present them as well. So yes, thank you. Any questions?
Thanks so much, both. Question over here.
Hi, Lewis Perry here from Rolls-Royce. I'm just wondering, how do you go about getting suppliers to get on board with this stuff? So what kind of approach do you take in getting them involved in sort of selling this to them?
Well, it depends on the relationship, and I don't want to speak for Sarah, but you've got suppliers who rely on you and suppliers who you rely on. So, you know, there's more work to kind of explore that and understand it as we, because we're obviously only in this for a few months. I think there's a kind of a reward factor for a supplier not to constantly have to reply to emails. You know, the slide that you guys had up there earlier on, Anam, about the supplier interaction, putting information to them, you know, give me updates. You know, that's the kind of thing that the system can do proactively without, you know, and sell it to them, not, well, subtly, because people think they're too busy, but actually, are you too busy to read an email and check some stuff out, or do you want to read 10 emails, you know, and do you want to go and log into your ERP system and do all that sort of thing? So, as I say, it's sort of early days, and who holds the power in the relationship dictates a lot about how much you can rely on suppliers to interact with it. But if somebody doesn't want to log in and drop a PDF onto that, that's fine. Sarah can drop it in, you know, the system will read it, and, you know, we'll go from there. So we're not assuming every supplier is going to interact with it, but we will create incentives for them to effectively save them time.
Thank you. Anna.
I really, really like what you're doing. My question to you is, in an ideal world, to make better sourcing decisions, what data for the suppliers would you want at the point of raising the RFQ? I saw there you had lead times, you had shipping method, you had price, I think. But what is the data that you'd want at that point that would help the buyers make the most optimal sourcing decision?
Well, one thing I sort of glossed over there is even just the quantity available or the quantity coming down the line. So it depends on the circumstances. So, you know, Dentsu, you buy a lot of, you know, off the shelf components, but you also buy bespoke components. So there's different dynamics there. So the capacity to fulfill is something that we can explore more than just asking how many have you got on the shelf. But is there anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, parts that we had options for, I think, were potential price breaks. So maybe we're asking for 100 of something, they might come back, give them the option to say, well, you might be better off buying a 500. You know, I think that's a really helpful piece of information to have.
Yeah, in fact, yeah, that's something we've structured into the roadmap to be able to allow them to capture it. Again, it comes back to that other question of how much data do we want to try and extract from these guys? I'm sitting here imagining this, you know, sort of standardized supplier API thing, but that's just me. How do we get data across supply chains and systems that are somewhere like ours, cloud, cutting edge, others that are old school, you know, black boxes basically. So I think the more effort we can take out of that, the better. Because I think the point I would kind of make that SMEs are struggling to hire enough people. And the pool of people you can hire is not getting any bigger, and it won't get any bigger with the way demographic changes are happening. So, you know, these are the sorts of questions that we need to come up with system answers to, because there just won't be enough time.
What about scores like customer service, responsiveness, risk?
Well, that's all. Yeah, I mean, again, it depends on the context. So that's all baked into your supplier rating. So different companies obviously have different priorities for the kind of thing you're talking about. But I kind of assume everyone knows this, but like our system already knows how well your suppliers perform on on-time delivery, for example. The sort of subjective stuff around customer service can come into the rating as well. So, but yeah, all that kind of stuff is helpful. Cool. Thanks very much, everyone.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank you both.
cheers.
Okay, and that wraps up our presentations for the afternoon, but I think it's fair to say massive round of applause, thank you. Massive round of applause for everyone that's presented today. Right, and I'll hand it over to Ben now to talk about the next steps on the hub.
Hi everyone. How's the level of excitement in the room?
It was pretty good, eh? So we're starting to see now how a lot of the activities that we're doing are starting to come together and converge. And that's really what this next phase of what we're doing in the supply chain hub in the dish is all about. How do we help connect the supply of tech to the demand for tech and help make people in this room money? So really, what's next? First of all, it's 12 months. 12 months for the next kind of key through for the remainder of our funding. That's really what we've got to make sure is we're filling this timetable with as much valuable activity that helps prove that business can generate around 30% savings through better information flow across their supply chain. So we've got 12 months. That's the key thing we've got to start to all collectively deliver value around. So we'll talk about the technology and the funding side that we're doing. So we've got no open call, new open call that's launching in June. Sorry, that's demonstrating the next round of capabilities are starting to demonstrate in June. Then we have two flagship programs that are going to be demonstrating. So these are big major programs that we've been investing, total of just under £5 million, including Innovate UK and industry co-investment. One on Freeports, looking at creating being able to track assets across a Freeport and create a basic digital twin as a national asset. The other one looking at logistics and logistics optimization through distributed collaborative logistics. Another piece that we're looking at there that people in the room are involved in. Then we're launching our interoperability flagship, or the framework demonstration, which is really about a novel approach to connecting or enabling interoperability between different supply chain systems. Then we're launching demonstrating the network insight environment that we're working with the ICC on through the critical mineral supply chain. And so the combination of these technical capabilities with tracking assets across a port, optimizing logistics through collaborative logistics and to optimize truck fill, and then enabling dynamic interoperability between systems, which can then be queried, which is the query mechanism we're demonstrating in the network program. I'm not explaining it it's quite a long thing to explain, but in essence, this is about creating almost a utility layer that sits between many of the solutions that we're developing here today to enable effective governance between the exchange of information and value. And that's really a piece that we're trying to pull together here through these different programs towards the end of the program. Demonstrate real value in how information can be exchanged between different stakeholders. Then we'll start to see the testbed deployments, starting to demonstrate ROI in around September sort of time. And then crucially, what we're going to start to do is launch engagement in the virtual hub platform. So that's the new collaboration platform that William talked about eloquently during the interviews, where we're going to start to test out how we can create a collaborative network between us, right? And I'll explain a bit more about that now, but that's going to be a soft launch in April, because we want to start with the people involved in the program, pretty much like everybody in the room here. Is anybody not actually involved in a program that's in the room today? And that's exactly where we want to start. We want to start with our community, right? And this is how we want to start. We want to leverage our networks, leverage our community to grow. We don't want to go straight out to people who are outside of our community. We want to start here and deliver value for you guys. So that's the first test, the pilot launch that happens in April. We're going to test, we're going to learn around what we're doing. Then launching educational modules and training materials to help people kind of align on what we mean by supply chain digitalization. What's the art of the possible and so on. We're then going to move towards a public event. And this is really when we want not just you to come, but you to bring your friends and you to bring the people that are the next layer around you, your colleagues and your partners in supply chain, right? Not complete randoms necessarily. I mean, you can do, but ideally people in your broader network. We want to start to grow the network gradually through kind of strong and valuable connections that you already have. And that's in July. And that's really going to be the big ask to you guys. We're then going to start matchmaking, which is really where value is generated here, connecting demand to supply and enabling companies, you all, to make money from that process, right? We're then going to launch a membership model, hopefully, which is going to start to give additional value to people who can start to generate better value from the matchmaking of supply and demand of technology solutions. Then we're going to do a final showcase, a big ta-da moment to everybody to show all of the amazing work that we have done so far. We're still 12 months away from that. And you've seen already how much great work we've done so far in the program. What's going to be the ta-da that we want to bring to the world? And that's really the question that we need to be able to answer as we go into the next 12 months. Because that's going to unlock the new model for the dish. Whatever it is that we are, whoever we are to become, that's when we have to have launched it. So we need a new, there's a lot of work that's being done behind the scenes on establishing the foundations for that. But that's when it has to begin, not end, right? And that's our challenge really for the next 12 months. What do we begin in February, March 2025? Because surely this can't end. I heard a quote from someone today that what's happening in this room and around in the London community blows away anything that's happening in California, blows away other things that are happening around the world. Well, we want to see that this really starts to expand and starts to do great things. And I know, we want to be showcasing all the great work that you guys are doing that enables that. So that's really what's next. The 12 months, we've got to pull it together. We've got to enable supply to meet demand. We've got to collaborate effectively. We've got to set a new paradigm for how digitalization of supply chain can happen. How, by optimizing better information flow between parties, we can improve the flows of material, money, and generate a 30% saving across most supply chains. And that 30% saving, we've got to prove it. And so that's really our key challenge from now on. Oh. Stop clicking. It wants us to make sure we remember this. I'm pointing the wrong way. And that's it. No. And there is another. What's happened? I was getting too excited, I think. That's what it is. Can somebody else click? It's completely dead. That's a bit of an anticlimax, isn't it? So the bit that is coming on here is an overview of the virtual hub. So the virtual hub is really the next step. The main next step for getting involved is sign up to the virtual hub, right? It's launching in April, and it's got 3 key components. The first thing is inspire and learn. So inspire yourselves, inspire your colleagues, and help everybody to learn. So there's a whole range of materials that are coming in terms of the art of the possible for digital supply chain, how to build a roadmap, how to do a bunch of things, which is on the slide pack, which you'll be able to receive. But that's the first thing. Let's inspire one another and the people around us and help everybody learn, start to build a common understanding of what we mean by supply chain digitalization. Then there's a capability called circles. And in circles, this is where we can form groups of collaboration. So a lot of people love the time in the networking space. Right, there we go. Perfect. Yeah. So circles, this is where we can figure out, and thank you for that. This is where the networking that happens between these sessions can happen online, right? That's really, we want to really help build those connections between people, form those circles and form those relationships, not just so they end in the room, but so that they carry on, not just good chats, but to start to see real adoption and deployments. And this is what we really want to enable. This is where actually the whole thing becomes real, right? So this is online. We're going to be launching with the circles around logistics, around collaboration, etc. So this is going to be launching soon. And then building. We want really to then move towards building and developing more technology solutions. Depending on funding, depending on business models, depending on a few things, this could develop into almost like an app store, where, to your point, it's got to be quick and easy to develop and test and product and understand whether or not a solution can benefit your business. That's where that can happen. And it can happen online very quickly based on some capabilities and an adjacent piece of work that Digital Catapult's doing at the moment. So hopefully that will become the shape of an app store when you can very quickly test and deploy, test solutions and understand how much it's going to benefit your business. So we want to help inspire, collaborate, and build towards this digital supply chain. And the place where that starts is going to be a really beautiful place, the virtual hub. So you can see here, this is the screen grabs of the platform. So you'll be able to form a circle, join a circle. You have a dashboard with all the different circles that you have. You'll be able to join leaders and pioneers who are participating in those programs. As was pointed out at a previous event, there won't be any American trucks in this one. It'll be English trucks, but that's just to demonstrate the whole thing. And then you'll have a kind of a message board in there. So all of the information, all of the activities that you're doing in your business that relate to supply chain digitalization can be in here, right? So instead of going to email or LinkedIn, as mentioned earlier, and drowning in everything that's happening, everything that you need to do for supply chain digitalization can be in this platform. But it can only be there if we make it so, right? So this is a collective effort that we have to collectively do together. So we're going to be asking you to generate and promote content for yourselves, to be able to participate and bring in your peers so that you can start to spin up collaborative environments together. And then you'll be able to connect with other like-minded people in your network and beyond your network, where you can start to form those spaces. We need to keep it classy. We need to make it exclusive. We don't want to be bombarding people with things that are going to start putting them off. So we need to find a way to make this compelling and exciting for everybody involved. And we're not going to be able to do it. It's as in the Digital Supply Chain Hub team, it can only be done with us all, right? So with you guys who are kind of leading this movement, we are here to facilitate and coordinate your work. But this is only going to work if you guys embrace it, want it, and help us improve it. Okay, so that's it. That's where we are. So hopefully that's all clear. Hopefully everyone's excited about that. And it's going to be a great 12 months.
Yeah, I mean, really looking forward to that. As Ben says, we'll be launching the platform virtually in April, and great opportunity for everyone to get involved. So, I mean, wow, what a great day. And first of all, the day's over to you guys, yeah, for a brilliant contribution from all of the test beds, the cohorts, and the industry participants have been involved. I think some of the things we've heard about today and the sort of difference it's making to the digitization of businesses and their supply chains, I think has been absolutely fabulous. So first of all, I'd like to thank everybody again for brilliant input. I'd also like to thank the DC team and the digital supply chain team, who have done an excellent job of, I suppose, sometimes corralling a little bit around getting everything moving and making it happen. But also in terms of supporting and helping all of the businesses and individuals and teams around. Please do spend the time after today going out and looking at the demos outside. We've seen very brief shots of those here, but there's a load more you can dig into, and you can take the opportunity to really test and see what's going on. There's some really great things that organizations have been building and working on here. These are only a few as well of the 25 or 26 different solutions we have out there now. And as Ben showed, there'll be a lot more coming over the next 6 to 12 months. So watch out for that, and please contribute, get involved, engage us as you need to take it forward. Finally, I'd also like to thank the Made Smarter team for obviously supporting us through this. And if it wasn't for their funding, we wouldn't be able to do any of that. And Innovate UK. We are a collective, yeah, and we're all going to work together to make digital supply chains the norm in UK industry. Yeah, that's what we're about. And very excited to continue the journey for the rest of this year. I think we're now got time for sort of some refreshments out in the foyer where we were earlier, and some networking opportunities. So please hang around. And you know, any feedback you have to us, by the way, on today or anything that we're doing, please, you know, drop us a note. Let us know how things are going. You know, we want to improve and make it a really successful program. And as Ben says, carry on past 2025 into a really successful innovation forum for digital supply chain. So thanks again, and please enjoy.